Hello and welcome to the Bracket Show. I am Jacob London, and I don't know what happened then. Hi, Taylor. How are you?
Hi. We'll see how today goes. I'm still a little
Under the weather.
a little bit. So we're gonna
This is the Under the Weather show, I
this is
think.
the Under the Weather show where we'll see if I have a voice like after halfway through this thing. That's where we're at.
That's fair. Mara, how are you?
I'm for the first time trying a Quest lemon cake protein bar. I gotta say, it tastes like lemon.
Fair.
I've started, by the way, giving unsolicited and unsponsored reviews of food and drink on various shows. I highly recommend people find the most recent episode of The Basement, which may or may not be episode 7. We forgot how to count, so who knows? I tried Monster Zero Ultraviolet, which it's good when the flavor is a color and not any sort of food. Just please check that out. It's worth it.
Okay. And Adam and Marisol, how are you?
Yes, we're unmuted now.
We're here.
Yeah.
We're here. Sorry, folks. Hello, everybody. I just came right from a late night at work and am catching my breath, and I'm happy to be here.
And I plugged the camera into the power outlet. I switched the USB cord.
That was happening.
That's what happened. Took a while to figure that out.
Well, it seems as though we're all going to be in for a good night tonight. All right. Well, let's kick it off very quickly with our first matchup. Let's get this over and done with.
You're really selling the quality of what this show is going to be. You're just like, let's just
opening round. We're like, let's get this shit done with.
Starting off with the Florida Project versus A Simple Favor. Adam, I'm going to start with you today.
This is not an infuriating way to open up this bracket, so that is cool. We're off to a great start. So I was really high on A Simple Favor when it came out, I'll admit. I saw it when it came out in theaters, was surprised by how much I liked it at the time. And I think I was, a little starved for movies of that genre. But I liked that it was a throwback to, a Hitchcockian style story, but with a distinct sense of humor. And then I watched it a couple more times. But in the years since, when I catch scenes from it, it's not that I dislike it. I still think it's one of Paul Feig's stronger movies for sure. But I think it's a little too cute for its own good, which undermines some of the serious stuff it's dealing with, because it's got some really serious twists and turns, and because it's just a little too heightened at times. I don't fully buy into the gravity of everything that's happening, but it's still a really fun movie to watch. The Florida Project is a movie that I have no excuse for only having seen recently. I missed it when it came out. I missed it in all the years since then. And I watched it for this show. And because I'll insult you plenty later, I'm going to say this. Thank you, Jacob. No, I would have seen this no matter what, but it was really fun to have a reason to bump it up. And as a Willem Dafoe obsessive, I always get excited when I see him play quote unquote normal people, because I love him in all the crazy Willem Dafoe roles and all the whimsical stuff, but he's so grounded in this. And then the rest of the cast they're just so relatable. They feel so real, from the kids up to the adults, almost to a stressful, anxiety-inducing amount. The movie's so fully realized. It's so thoughtful about everything it's dealing with. If you've been to Florida, that everywhere there's a giant center of commerce. Disney World is one of them, but outside of it, you have a completely different story happening. And this movie gets at that so well. It's a bunch of vignettes that still work together to make a cohesive story, and the ending really floored me. I like its chances. I'm going to vote for the Florida Project.
Mara.
Everything Adam said. I gotta say, I think A Simple Favor kind of fell apart for me a little bit in its third act. I was really on board for it the first two acts. I was like, okay, all right. And then I was like, oh, okay, all right. But man, the Florida Project was such a lovely surprise, especially for Willem Dafoe. Maybe one of my favorite roles of his, especially because, as Adam said, it's so grounded. It feels like such a real, authentic person, which is out of his wheelhouse. And maybe that's part of why I like it, because it's just so distinctive and it stands out. Also, I mean, kid actors, sometimes it's hard to feel that you can feel them being directed to feel a feeling and not them understanding how to feel a feeling. I felt like the child actors were just so good. And also, I just love that they like straight up broke into Disney World and filmed illegally at the end, which, I mean, no offense to the mouse, but like, suck it every once in a while, just because, you know, they don't always make good choices. But yeah, no, definitely the Florida Project in this case. I love a nice, easy matchup for the first one. Thank you, Jacob. We don't say that very much. Thanks, Jacob.
Yeah, bask in it. Bask in
Yeah.
it
All you can,
Enjoy
sir.
it, yeah.
It's getting rough next. Taylor.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna keep this short and sweet because I haven't seen the Florida Project. And I actually really like A Simple Favor. And the fashion that Blake Lively has going on is everything to me in that movie. Plus, you've got the lovely, amazing Linda Cardellini making her appearance in it. So that's Simple Favorites.
Okay, Marisol.
Yeah, this is so easy. I will echo you guys. Thank you, Jacob. This is very easy. This is definitely the Florida Project. I saw both of these movies for the first time this week. Simple Favor, killer fashion, Taylor, like you said. Fashion is dynamite. I think this is very Gone Girl light, this movie. I think it's very, and I think Paul Feig is not the right director to tackle this. I don't think it ever gets as sexy or dangerous or juicy or salacious or just, I don't think it goes as deep as it could. It all seems kind of safe and almost like a TV, like an episode of television the whole time I'm watching The Simple Favor, which is not what you should be feeling when you watch the story. Otherwise, I think it's fun. And I do think the threads kind of lose it because I wasn't even rooting for Anna Kendrick at the end. Like I was just like, who do I pick for in this situation? I was like, I don't want either of you. Like, they're like, oh, suck it, Blake Lively. I'm like, what? I was like, you all can suck it. But yeah, but yeah, Florida Project. I painfully cried at the end of Florida Project. Adam will attest to it. Painfully cried. It broke me. We are definitely going to talk about this movie more, so I'll save it. What a delight. Absolutely the Florida Project. This is a transcendent movie right here. We'll get into it in another round.
All right. And with that, Florida Project makes it through to the next round. All right. Next up, we have Crazy Stupid Love versus The Guest. Taylor, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Thanks. So The Guest has been on my watch list for so long, and I still haven't watched it. I knew I needed to watch it for this, and this week has been disgusting and chaotic for a lot of reasons. So haven't gotten around to it. So that's kind of, I mean, it makes it easier for me because, you know, I don't have to pick between two movies potentially that I'm like mad at you for. So that helps you also, really. Crazy Stupid Love, though, I genuinely don't know if I would have picked a lot of things over it anyway, just because it is one of my favorite rom-coms. I think it has one of the best twist reveal moments that you can get in a movie. It just, everyone I've ever talked to who's watched it for the first time, it's been like, I was not ready for it, was not expecting it, haven't laughed that hard in a long time. I think the chemistry between all the cast is phenomenal. It's such a stacked cast too. Like, it's kind of insane the amount of people who are actually in it. Like, how do you have a movie that has Steve Carell, Ryan Gosling, Julianne Moore, Emma Stone, like Marissa Tomei, Kevin Bacon.
Right?
Like, what? That's nuts.
Yeah.
That's absolutely insane. And they're all doing such a great job. There's so many funny moments in it that really work. You know, you've got your couple that is like the goat of on-screen chemistry, which is Gosling and Emma Stone. So you've got that going on, which is amazing. You've got the "you look photoshopped" scene, which is one of my favorite scenes ever. Like, because he does look photoshopped, and it offends me specifically that that's the thing that's happening. And also, shout out to the small Josh Groban cameo, which I'm obsessed with for personal reasons. Love that. Love that he's like a doofus and doesn't deserve Emma Stone. It's just like a personal thing for me where I'm like, yep, nailed it. Check. Everything's perfect. Love it.
Marisol.
Oh no. Okay. All right. I don't want to follow that up. I appreciate that, Taylor. I hear the love for Crazy Stupid Love. I'm just gonna say I'm gonna pick the guest in this situation because I do like. I think Dan Stevens. The world is a better place when Dan Stevens acts. And he is, if anybody's ever watched the show Legion, they know that this man can go to some seriously twisted places as an actor. Just with his face alone, he's unhinged. And The Guest is a great, like more broader introduction to him before Beauty and the Beast. He's a great actor to play this person who seemingly is all kosher on the surface, but you find out there's something a little bit wrong with him piece by piece as the movie goes on. Dan Stevens carries The Guest, carries this movie. A great like kind of like there's somebody wrong in my house kind of movie. Like there's somebody infiltrating who shouldn't be here into this family. I think it's solid in that regard. I do think that Crazy Stupid Love is like, it's an American version of like Love Actually for me, whereas it's just deals very broadly. I think it deals too broadly with a lot of emotions. Feels more like kind of like a Hallmark card turned into a movie. And I think it's unbelievable how stacked, how many Oscar winners and Oscar nominees you have like selling this material and this cast. Love the cast to bits because they're all incredible. But I do think it is a very, 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 I do think it's, in retrospect, kind of not quite a true to life depiction of love. That I don't think it compares to the thrills of The Guest. And I will say one thing that if anybody who ever cares about America's Next Top Model, I was really excited watching Crazy Stupid Love because Annalie Tipton is in this movie. She plays the babysitter who the little kid falls in love with. And I loved her. She was like a runner-up on America's Top Model, like season like 11 or whatever. And she was amazing. And I was so happy to see her acting in a movie. That's my little inside me thing that I care about. But I still won't vote for Crazy Stupid Love. Sorry, Annalie. Yeah.
Mara.
I enjoy Crazy Stupid Love quite a bit. I do think it is one of the better modern rom-coms, especially coming from a person who despises the rom-com genre a lot. But sadly, I do have to vote for The Guest. I think it's such a great modern suspense thriller kind of horror. Also, shout out to Brendan Meyer, our lovely Schmodown fellow competitor, also great in that movie.
Yeah,
I feel bad because I hadn't seen it for a really long time, and I was like, oh yeah, Brendan, I'm totally gonna get around to it. I really did mean to, but several years ago, of course I did. But after knowing him for like way too long, it's like, oh, I've known you for like a year. I swear I'm gonna get around to it. But yeah, no, I found myself really mesmerized by the performances. It was just really compelling. I've revisited it more than I've revisited Crazy Stupid Love. Not that that's always the litmus test for it, but it's not a competition of what is easier or harder to do, but I feel like the tone was just really nailed for the genre in The Guest, just to such a high level of execution. And I think that it was it shot its shot, it aimed for its target, and it hit where it wanted to hit. And I think that that's really hard to do, especially in like, the suspense thriller type of movie for modern day, and to really have a good actor sell it. Casting was key, and I think that they did such a great job. So I'm also going to vote for The Guest.
Adam.
So I get everything you're saying about Crazy Stupid Love, because I think there's there's a streak of cynicism to that movie from a writing perspective that's kind of sneaky. But the thing that works for me for Crazy Stupid Love is the cast. They're all so great. And like, I would watch them reenact Troll 2, and I think it would be, and I mean, to be fair, that would be incredible. It would be incredible. But a bad example. But my point is, they make the movie fun to watch, in my opinion. I don't revisit it that much. Catch bits and pieces here and there. What I remember liking the most is the scenes between Gosling and Carell. I like their back and forth. And I rewatched The Big Short last year and found myself a little nostalgic, deja vu-y for their scenes in Crazy Stupid Love. With that in mind, The Guest is a movie I've gone back to repeatedly. And I had the pleasure of watching. It was the first time you'd seen it when we watched it together. And I hopefully you don't mind me sharing this. It was so funny to watch her react to being stressed out every time Brendan was on screen.
I was scared for Brendan. I was scared for him.
Like every time, like
I was.
There's for anyone who hasn't seen it, I don't want to ruin it, but there's a scene with Dan Stevens and Brendan in a bar, and it's pretty great. But it is very stressful if you care about Brendan's well-being.
I do. I was like, don't fuck with him.
It was. He
has a match next week.
That was one of my most enjoyable rewatches because Marisol was so worried about Brendan in that movie. Aside from that, this movie is just a really great. It flips the whole house guest comedy thing on its head and makes it a horror movie. I guess it could kind of be viewed as a remake of Sinbad's House Guest for all the big fans of that movie. But like Dan Stevens is so enigmatic in it. He's so charming. He's Dan Stevens. And I called it out in the chat, but I was excited to see Wingard bring him back in at least into his directorial field by putting him in the new Godzilla movie. Because why not? Just throw him in there. I also think I agree with what Mara was saying about this being a really strong film from Adam Wingard. I think it's his best movie. I've got a soft spot for his Blair Witch movie, and I like his Godzilla movies. Okay, I think they're fun, but I think he nails it with The Guest, and it's funny, it's upsetting, and I think a sequel would be great. And this is one of those weird things where they made a soundtrack to the non-existent sequel. So if you look up The Guest soundtrack, you'll find The Guest and The Guest 2. So they made a conceptual soundtrack for the non-existent sequel, and it's pretty awesome, which is a hell of a way to pitch a movie. But I do think The Guest 2 would be great. I do have to vote for The Guest.
All right. And with that, The Guest moves on to the next round. All right. Well, Marisol, you spoke of Gone Girl. We have The Other Guys versus Gone Girl. I'm going to start with this one because I have the fairly controversial opinion. I don't like The Other Guys. I straight up think it's a bad film. I don't find it funny. I like a lot of the. I don't find the.
I should put it in the bracket, boss.
I don't find the dynamic between Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg that funny. I don't know. Just none of this movie worked. I think the best part of the movie is Samuel L. Jackson and Dwayne Johnson at the start, and that has the best joke when they jump off the building. But other than that, not a whole lot of this movie really works for me. So whereas in Gone Girl rivals my favorite Fincher movies every now and then. So I'm going to go Gone Girl. I think Gone Girl is a damn near masterpiece from Fincher. So Marisol.
Yeah. Once in a while with these bracket stuff, there's a movie where I'm like, I've been very committed. I really have enjoyed this bracket, Jacob, because it's pushed me over the hump to watch these movies that I was like, I've always wanted to watch it. Damn it, I'm going to do it. And like the Florida Project is an excellent example of that. Thank God for you, Jacob, with that one.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
I'll lay it on.
Like, oh, all right.
Yeah. And then there are some movies sometimes where I'm like, as much as I want to watch as much as I can before we do the shows, I'm gonna skip this one. And I skipped the other guys this week because I was like, you know what? I there was something in my gut. There was something in my gut, and so full disclosure, I'm not going to talk about what I think the movie is or wouldn't be or whatever. I'm just going to leave you with that and say that even if I had watched it, I think I would absolutely pick Gone Girl because I think it's that strong a movie, and it was a firecracker in the middle of the decade. And it was a movie that everybody talked about. Great hook. It got people. I love when a great movie gets people into books more. And Gone Girl was tenfold an example of that, where everybody went out and got this book after they saw this movie. I love it when a great film highlights a great book. This is definitely Gone Girl.
So I have seen the other guys, and I don't ever need to think about it or see it ever again. To be honest, I saw it a lot of years ago, like a long time ago, and was just like, okay, well, that was a movie. Whereas Gone Girl, as our iconic queen Anne Hathaway once said, it's her favorite rom-com, and it's amazing. I love Gone Girl. I think that it's so unhinged in the best possible way. Cast is great. I'm not going to go on and on about it because I'm pretty sure we're going to get to talk about it again after this. But Gone Girl, for sure. This is the closest I'm probably going to get to a rom-com going through with this group. So we're just going to take the win.
Have faith, Taylor. I'm so sorry.
Mara.
Well, I guess it seems like this group of people is fairly agreed that the other guys is at best fine. Yeah, I watched it when it came out. I laughed at it periodically, and I have not revisited it since, and I didn't feel the need to for this bracket show. I felt fairly confident that almost no matter what it was up against, that I wouldn't need to have rewatched it in its entirety, and I was correct. So, yeah, I really, really enjoy Gone Girl. I do think it has its problems, and I don't think that's problems of the film. I think that's problems of the story in and of itself and the whole cool girl thing and all that other crap. But again, that's not the fault of the film. That's just the fault of the character. But even so, though, definitely a movie I enjoy. I enjoy rewatching it. It obviously was a cultural phenomenon. And it also really changed how people looked at true crime. Also, I think that kind of actually kickstarted the wave of true crime, like for the masses and not just for like the actual like niche like people that actually looked up like reports online and were in like the blogs and everything about, you know, and like the groups of people online that would try to like ghost solve things and whatever. So like, thanks Gone Girl. You gave me the true crime podcasts that I guilt listened to. So yeah, but yeah, Gone Girl, easy peasy.
Man, I really, other guys is in this list because everyone keeps telling me it's like one of Adam McKay's best movies, and I'm someone who's not a big Adam McKay guy. Like, I like 2 of Adam McKay's movies, so I just keep going, oh, okay, well, it's just me who doesn't like this movie. So clearly I was wrong. Adam.
All right, I get it. I get that the other guys isn't, you know, it didn't revolutionize the genre, but there's some fun stuff. Okay, all right. There's some fun.
Get up there, baby. Get on that soapbox. Go.
It's not a soapbox. It's you know, the top of a shoebox match.
Get on that shoebox.
So no, the other guys. As a fan of buddy cop movies, I definitely am here for lampooning them, and you know, hoping that this would be like the next Loaded Weapon one was kind of, you know, the idea going into it. It's not, but Michael Keaton is great. I just want to shout out Michael Keaton and his inexplicable references to TLC's music throughout the movie. That's probably my favorite running joke throughout the movie.
That's a selling point for me.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. So that's good. But Gone Girl is a great movie, start to finish. not flawless, but really, really well done. One of the stronger adaptations from a book that is more familiar to the masses than a lot of source material often is. For me, I read the book right before the movie. I couldn't help it. And I'll never forget, that was at a stage in my life where out of necessity, I had to read a lot of books on the Kindle app on my phone. So I read that whole book on my phone, which really hurt my eyes. But it was a good book, so it was worth it. And I really like the way it was adapted, because even though you know where the plot's going to go, Fincher does it in a way that's still surprising. I think the casting's inspired. I love the score. And I love how unsensational it is, despite the fact that you see things in it that are really jarring. So I vote for Gone Girl too, but watch the Michael Keaton scenes from other guys on YouTube because they're funny.
I will admit 2010, that like this and so Other Guys and Toy Story 3 were the two that really brought Michael Keaton back, because that was like and then he had Toy Story 3 where he was unanimously considered like, oh my god, he's the best part of this movie, like Ken's the best part of the movie. And then he did Other Guys, which again was like everyone was going, oh, he's the funniest part of the film. So I will admit, like, that is the one thing it got Michael Keaton to come back into Hollywood. All right.
In the 2000s, we'll get into Jack Frost and White Noise. Really,
which got him to leave. Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have The Book of Life versus What We Do in the Shadows. Mara.
For me, this is easy. I'm not saying that I didn't think about this critically, but What We Do in the Shadows is just joyful for me to watch. I really do find the humor, it hits me quite well. I know it may not be for everybody. I've seen I find it's a much more divisive movie than I realized, especially when I went on Letterboxd. I was kind of surprised. There are a lot of people that really do not like this movie. Hey, don't step there. But it works for me. I've actually never seen the show, by the way. Not that is germane to this conversation, but I don't want to, because if I don't like it, I don't. Not that it would diminish the movie, but I don't want to know that I don't like it. But the movie is it's pure joy to me. I love it so much. So I'm voting for joy in this case, and that doesn't necessarily make it a better or more superior film, or a better made film, or a better looking film, or better in lots of different ways per se, but I'm voting for joy.
Tell.
Yeah, this one's kind of an interesting one for me. I really like The Book of Life a lot. I like the animation style. I think that Diego Luna and Channing Tatum are both great in it. Zoe Saldana is great in it. Really like the voice acting. Like, the cast is awesome. I really like the music. I think the story's fun. I somehow find, like, anytime I bring this movie up, people are like, what are you even talking about? I've never heard of that movie. Or they're like, eh. And I'm like, why must you hurt me in this way? This is so rude. So I love it. I love The Book of Life a lot. I've been trying to get you to watch it for like 600 years. So that's fun. Can't even get a bracket show to get you to watch it, but it's fine. But What We Do in the Shadows, again, you hadn't seen until I sat down and was like, we're watching What We Do in the Shadows. We're doing this right now. Like, as an Australian, you're disgracing your country by not having seen this movie. So What We Do in the Shadows is an awesome movie. It's an awesome mockumentary. The humor is fantastic. It just nails kind of everything that it's trying to do. The cast is great. It's just one of those, like, kind of personal classics for me that I love going back and just putting on. It's one of the most, like, meme worthy movies out there. Like, it's like the perfect storm of, like, came out at the right time, with the right people, like, in the right kind of culture for it to really be embraced. Like, it's totally an internet era, like, meme, like, movie. And I really think that it's only been more appreciated as time has gone on, because I remember when it came out and I had seen it, like, no one was ever talking about it. It was another one of those movies where everyone's like, what the hell are you even talking about? And now there's, like, a hit TV show based off of it, and it's a whole thing. But anyway, What We Do in the Shadows is getting my vote.
Okay. Marisol.
Yeah. This is easy for me. This is definitely what we do in the shadows, only because I still didn't see the Book of Life. Sorry. Yes, I did skip over this one too, you know, and I feel so bad doing it too, because I was self-fulfilling, because I was like, I feel like, especially when we look at the 2010s, everybody's like, oh, the Book of Life. Oh, you mean Coco? We'd be like, no, the Book of Life. They're like, oh. And like, like when Coco came out, nobody gave a shit about the Book of Life anymore. I feel like I'm not going to say for everybody. I'm just going to say like what I did personally.
Book of Life's like, thanks.
I'm going to admit it. Yeah, I admit it. I didn't bother because I was like, this isn't Coco that. But I still do want to see this movie because I've heard great things about it. What we do in the shadows, though, is just like, I'm so primed for this. I love Flight of the Conchords. I've always loved that show when it first came out. So I was just so primed for this, just like Taika, Jermaine Clement energy. This just and this brilliant aspect, which maybe we haven't seen it before. I don't know if we ever seen it before, of taking something as extraordinary as vampires and making it as mundane as like The Office, like, you know, like making it just like the mundanity of just like the everyday lives of these vampires, these beings. Love the rivalry between vampires and werewolves in the movie. Like, it's just, there's so much just delicious touches in it. This is definitely what we do in the shadows. You just touched on it, Taylor. It was just such a big moment. It was just like, it was like lightning in a bottle when this movie hit, and was just this comedy sensation. I think it definitely deserves to move on in this round. Sorry. I will watch Book of Life, though. I will watch you.
Adam?
I forgot Diego Luna was one of the voices in Book of Life. And so I like that he and Gael Garcia Bernal, they've got that
little Y Tu Mama
that energy between that and Coco.
Hopefully nothing like that happens in Book of Life. That'll be a little wild.
So going into this week, I call out my blind spots going into every week. Last week I had 10. That was excessive, and I got to 6. This week I got to 5 out of 6.
Oh, wow.
Book of Life was the 6th. I didn't see it. I'm a piece of garbage. And
cool.
But the
so
difference
hear
between
about
me and Jacob London is I admit that. I admit that.
Yeah.
I own it. No, I actually will watch Book of Life. Even the ones that, you know, whether they move on or not, I'm keeping track of the ones I haven't seen. Cosmopolis, I haven't forgotten you. I know you were a wild card, but I'm going to watch you. So Book of Life, pin noted. But What We Do in the Shadows is easily one of my favorite comedies of the 2010s, if not one of my favorite movies of the 2010s. I do vote for it. I know we'll get to talk about it more based on math, but I just have to say, Mara, don't worry. The show is worth your time. The only reason I would caution you into getting into it is you might want to watch a lot of it. I've watched like the first 2 seasons, and I've been saving the second 2. I think that the show's great, but the movie stands on its own. It's so funny. And as a fan of just like the genre it's making fun of, it really nails it. I love that you have the Nosferatu / Salem's Lot vampire in the basement, and he doesn't even like talk. And he's just like a
Peter. Yeah. What is his name?
And Jermaine Clement in this as Vlad. His name's Vlad, right? Mm-hmm. I think it is. When he turns into the cat, that wrecks me. I can't handle it. The first time it like pans over and you see his little face on the cat, I lost control. I had to pause the movie. One of the best movie nights of my life was the first time I watched this. I'm not exaggerating, because I was on the road for work at my job at the time. And I was at this random Airbnb in Vermont, and it was nice, but not super fancy. But I just remember, like, I had picked up a couple DVDs from the library, and I had checked out What We Do in the Shadows and Sing Street, because I'd never seen them. And I watched them both for the first time the same night. And it was so fun. I was like completely by myself, and I was just like wanting to tell everybody about these movies. So there's a little extra context for you. The cat agrees with me.
I know we're going to get to talk about this movie more, but one of my favorite reveals, like I remember the first time watching that movie, one of my favorite moments of the reveal when you finally get who the Beast is. Like, he's been building up this horrific, like, just nasty, like, adversary, and you get there and it's freaking it's Pauline. It's this woman that he's been scorned by, that he's made this huge tall tale of like just the bane of his existence for all of eternity, and that just wrecked me. It wrecked me.
I also look. I'm going What We Do in the Shadows. You've all said it. This is one of the best comedies of the decade. Like, it's just so funny and so original and so clever that I have to go with What We Do in the Shadows. All right, next up we have Moana versus Your Name. Mara, I'm going to start with you.
Again, I feel bad, but this is not a choice for me. I really enjoyed Moana. I did. But it's Your Name. Like, look who you're talking to. Of course it's Your Name. I mean, really, did anyone doubt that for like even a second? I have no idea if anyone else has seen this. I really encourage people to watch it. It actually, if I'm being honest, I liked it the first time I saw it, but it didn't grab me, and I didn't love it the first time that I saw it, which I know surprising, but I just thought, I was like, oh, it's good. It's good. But after watching Suzume and being like, oh my God, this movie was made just for me and I love it so much, I was like, I need to go back and rewatch Your Name. And so another movie made for me, just for me, only me, no one else, touched my soul. And everyone else is privileged that they also got to watch it. So yeah, it's Your Name. And I hope we get to talk about it more.
Adam.
Oh man, Mara, hopefully, you'll be somewhat proud of me. I literally finished Your Name about 30 minutes ago. I saw it just in time. Thank you, Criterion Channel. But yeah, I was really impressed with this film. I'd heard a lot about it. I feel like it just came out a few years ago. So when I was reminded it came out in 2016, I was like, oh no. That really threw me off, and that's a separate conversation. But the animation, Jesus, like just incredibly breathtaking animation. The thing I love about anime style films especially is whether it's leaning all the way into genre or it's a slice of life story, the animation's always so dynamic and exciting. And this particular film, I just was really struck by that. I appreciate what you said, Mara, about the first time you see it, because I still need some time to let this settle. I really do. I do recommend it. People should watch this film. The Criterion Channel has the Japanese and the English version, so you could watch either one you want. But I think it's well worth your time. It jumps around a lot, but I think given the way the story's set up, that kind of makes sense. It gets cosmic in a way I didn't expect, but it never loses its sense of staying intimate. The score was fantastic. I loved all the Japanese pop music, as we were talking about.
Like, J-pop for the win.
That kept popping up. That closing credit song is so good. So I have nothing but good things to say about this. I really just saw it, so I'm processing it. But like, don't let anyone, if all you know about this is it's got some things in common with the basic setup of a Freaky Friday movie, that's selling it way short. It's so much more than that. It starts off as a body swap story, but it really explores what that means, which is cool. Moana, I've seen more times than I can count because I have a 7-year-old daughter, and I've seen it so many times. And
she says, "You're welcome."
Yeah, and that's why I have to give Moana all the credit in the world. I have seen it so many times, and I don't hate it. Good job, Moana. Like, I'm a little confused that we have the live-action remake and the animated sequel coming out within a year of each other. That's bad. That's bad planning. Don't do that, Disney. In fact, just don't do the live-action one at all. I don't
ignore it. It's just The Rock.
I don't want that movie. I don't want it.
It's The Rock.
The animated sequel, sure. But the music is fantastic. Tamatoa My daughter has a hermit crab at her mom's named Tamatoa, so shout out to him. But like, I just really enjoy this film overall. It's really hard to pick between these two, but here's the thing. I want to give Your Name a fighting chance, and so I'm going to vote for it, with all due respect to Moana, which I think is as good an animated film that we've seen in a long time. But Your Name is interesting, and I want to make this bracket competitive. So if Moana wins, I'm fine with that. But let's see what happens.
All right, Marisol.
Okay. Yeah, I also watched Your Name this week for the first time. Really, like you said, really takes off and turns into something else, which I love. I love the themes in it. I will say the criticism I will only say about it is like, I just wish a lot of this has to do with characters connecting between cosmos and time and space. And I think that maybe having these be with like two 16-year-olds is maybe not the deepest way for it to impact me. I think if these characters have been a little older, I think I would really feel the weight of them feeling like they experienced life and they knew what it meant to really connect with somebody from a different time. My first time watching this, like you talked about Marisol again, my first time watching this, I didn't feel a connection as much between a couple teen boppers. And that sounds reductive. Sorry. I will say this about Your Name. Fun music, again, J-pop for the win. And and this is one of the most just striking animated movies I've seen in a while. The use of light, the way that they animate, the way that these Japanese animators are animating light, reflections of light, retractions of light, the way light filters through objects is just breathtaking. It's unlike anything I think I've ever seen in an animated movie. And it's throughout this entire film. Your Name is just dazzling to look at. And it's hard to get swept up in the romanticism at all. I totally get it. Moana though, you guys, I'm going to be that Moana person here. Moana though. Look, I have watched Moana like 4 times just as an adult, just by myself.
4?
I ain't got no kid. All right.
You watched it plenty with my kid.
I have watched it once with Amelia, yes. And I made her. I was like, "Can we put on Moana?" And she was like, "Okay." But look, Moana. I think Moana is one of the best things Disney has put out in the entire decade, up there with like Zootopia and like the first Frozen. Second Frozen for me. I don't know. Whatever. Who cares? Who cares? I just think Moana is one of the best things that Disney, not Pixar, Disney has put out in the 2010s. Absolutely. I just think it's breathtaking, the animation in it. I think the way that they incorporate water in it. I love Moana so much. I come back to it. I come back to how catchy the music is. I come back to how Soarin' is. I separate the sequel, whatever outside news, movie news about it is. I think that Moana is a unique and just fascinating and great hero's journey, very formulaic, but with a fresh, exciting protagonist. And I cannot say enough great things about Moana. It really hits for me. And Your Name is beautiful and thematically ponderous. And I think it will kind of go up on a rewatch. But for me, Moana hits on the first watch and then on multiple watches. So I got to go back to Moana. I think it's a very impressionable movie. I love the way it's just imprinted on so many young girls, and I just think it's worth the hubbub.
All right, I am gonna vote for Your Name. I really do. I agree with you guys. I really do love Your Name, and like I love Moana as well. Like I think it's a really great movie, but I am going to vote for Your Name and move that one along. And Taylor,
I haven't seen either of these movies, so I have nothing to say.
Oh, shit.
Wow.
I got nothing for you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Moana is broadcast when we sleep into our heads. How have you missed it?
I don't sleep, so it doesn't get broadcast.
There you go. There you go.
yeah, Moana's been one of those ones that for years I just always forget that you haven't seen it.
You're always like, "Oh, Moana," and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Cool."
Moana.
All right, so with that, Your Name does move on.
I love you, Moana.
She's going to be fine.
We
Good job, you.
Yes.
Next up, we have.
She won't be cool.
I think this is a nice palate cleanser.
Oh God, I hope so.
Portrait of a Lady on Fire versus Steve Jobs. Taylor, I'll let you start.
This is like almost an insult, a little bit, where you're like, oh, you get points for showing up, I guess, Steve Jobs, but please, like, what are we doing here? So Portrait of a Lady on Fire, much in like our typical fashion, was one that we both went into for a screening having no idea what we were in for. We like knew the name of the movie and knew that it was a foreign film, and that was all the context we had.
I knew it had been fucked over at the Oscars. That was it. Like at the nomination stage.
In the nominations, yeah. So went in having no idea what we were in for, left going, I don't think that I will ever have enough emotional capacity to deal with how wrecked. Like I was like, why would you do this to me? But also I need like the 8K disc version immediately. Portrait of a Lady on Fire is beautiful, visually stunning, just insane. Like the color palette, the locations, the costume design, the production design, the lighting choices. It's just such a gorgeous aesthetic movie, just that in and of itself. But the story is just so heart-wrenching and so like delicate and so intimate. And every time I rewatch it, I'm like, oh, this will be a nice rewatch. And then by the end, I'm like, well, that was a terrible idea for my mental and emotional state, because by the end of it, I just personally feel so wrung out knowing that like it's one of those moments that gets bottled where you're like, wow, that's the kind of pain that's going to like live with these characters forever. But you know, with the way the ending is framed, that like they would have rather had that time together and like mourn it than not have had any of it at all. And I just think it's such a beautiful way to like frame a story like that. I think the chemistry of the cast is incredible. I think that final scene, the way that it's shot, is phenomenal. Like I love it. This pretty much immediately shot to the top of my list of like one of the best films I've ever seen. And I don't think it's ever going to leave that position. Like it just hit me so specifically. And I'm just like, I'm so thankful that we were given this movie, because it blows me away every single time I watch it.
Marisol?
Oh shit. Okay.
Sorry.
I'm like, yeah, Taylor, and then I'm vibing off of what Taylor's saying, and you make me go. I'm not ready. I'm still enjoying. Yeah, I'm still basking. Yeah. Yeah. No, yes. I mean, she said a lot of the things that I feel. Yeah. Portrait of a Lady of Fire. I was late to the game with this. I think we saw it together for the first time, like a few years ago. But I was looking up Whistler's Mother, because that's a painting that like I was thinking of this painting for like some reason, like while
Bean.
No, stop it, not Bean. But like this kind of energy. I don't know how to like describe this, but like this painting and this kind of energy. Where's the camera? You know what I'm talking about? Does anybody know what I'm talking about when I say Whistler's Mother? Yeah, that painting of like the lady just kind of there, and just the. I feel like this whole movie is a painting. Like it's just like, and yes, it's self-fulfilling because the movie is about a woman painting another woman. Yes, but it's also just like the cinematography is so like there's so much light in this. It's unlike almost any movie you see, especially in this day and age where so many movies are so dark. And there's so much like non-lighting going on in so many movies. To have a movie this bright, this like sea-coasted and bright, it's so striking, just the look of this. It's an incredible slow burn, the movie. It's one of, like everything you've said, just one of the most lauded of the decade. And I was just vibing with it the whole time. with it. I love that about it. I love the restraint and everything about it. I think it is a modern classic. I think Steve Jobs is a good movie. I think it's definitely not Sorkin's best, but I think it is a good movie. But I really love Kate Winslet. I want to shout out Kate Winslet because I think she's one of the MVPs of Steve Jobs. But I just think Jobs gets caught up in just not. It feels like too much of an abstraction. It's too much of an idea. I think Jobs would make an amazing stage play, but I don't think it translates because it's so conceptual rather than literal. I think it functions more as like an idea film than an actual biopic. It all doesn't matter because I think that Portrait of a Lady on Fire is definitely going to sweep through here, and it deserves to, because I think it is pretty stellar.
Mara?
I think you're underestimating how much I appreciate a cis hetero white man. I'm joking. No, what everyone said. Portrait of a Lady on Fire was one of my favorites of the year. Absolutely touching and affecting. Yeah, just we'll talk about it more again because we already know it's moving its way through. So I will yield my time until the next time we discuss it.
Adam?
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, Portrait of a Lady on Fire is a great movie. When we caught up with it, I was very impressed. It's always exciting when a movie comes out and it gets like that status within like a year or two of just like basically instant canonization. And Portrait of a Lady on Fire, I'm on board with that because I think it has a timelessness to it that is really hard to achieve, and you can't set out to just do that. It's a period piece that doesn't feel precious about being a period piece. It feels organic to the era where it takes place, and that is really hard to do. But I wanna give Steve Jobs a little bit of credit here. I know we're kind of like sweeping over it. But the thing I like about that movie is the way it narrows the focus and makes it about like three or four separate, significant moments in time. And yes, we're focused on Steve Jobs as a character, but you have a lot of other characters in there where you're getting some different perspectives. And for me, when I watched Steve Jobs, what I took away from it and what I really appreciated was the way it tapped into this collaborative group of people that starts with Steve Jobs for sure, but it's not just about him. And I think the movie's greatest achievement is not making it a cradle to the grave story. That would have been unbearable for a Steve Jobs biopic.
Wouldn't have been necessary.
Yeah. So I have never seen the Ashton Kutcher film. Probably won't. But I think Steve Jobs is a very strong picture that understands its subject matter and doesn't glorify Steve Jobs arbitrarily. In fact, I don't think it glorifies him at all. I think it asks questions about his legacy and the way he unveiled product and changed us as a culture. And I think that's important to talk about. But Portrait of a Lady on Fire, like I said, it feels timeless, and it's going forward. So I'll rewatch it for next time. I vote for Portrait of a Lady on Fire, though, for the record. But Steve Jobs is solid, people. Like,
no,
I haven't seen it.
I have a complicated relationship with Steve Jobs, just mostly because it was so very clearly a vehicle to be, oh, this is Social Network 2. We're getting the band back together to do Social Network again because Fincher was originally meant to direct. What's his name wrote it. It was, my brain just
going to be on Aaron Sorkin's tombstone.
Yeah,
what's his name?
Yeah. My brain just went, who's Aaron Sorkin? And like he wrote it. Like it was so clearly set up that we're doing Social Network again. And then Danny Boyle comes in, and I think it at least tried to do then something different of like, hey, we're not just Social Network all over again. But I think also it struggles in that identity because it's so very clearly that's how it's been set up. And again, everyone said it. Portrait, is an incredible movie, and absolutely getting my vote too and moving on. So yeah, everyone's already said how amazing and wonderful this movie is. All right, next up. This is the break Jacob's heart one.
Good.
Spotlight versus Warrior.
Oh,
I'm going to start with this. I am the one person in the world who believes very strongly Spotlight deserved Best Picture that year. I think Spotlight is a phenomenal movie. I think Spotlight is one of the most brilliant films about journalism and about the importance of journalism that we have right now. And I love everything about it so much. I also really love Warrior. And Warrior is one of those movies that is just, hey, let's make a grown man cry movies. Like they just it's just such, it's like that modern day Field of Dreams where it's just, hey, we're gonna just wreck you at the very end of this film. I'm gonna vote for Spotlight because that movie, I like, as much as Warrior means to me and as much as I think Warrior is an incredibly well-made film, Spotlight I think hits just an importance that Warrior just doesn't quite match, and so I am going to vote for Spotlight. Mara.
So this one I thought would be more difficult than it ended up being for me. I was very late to the party for both of these films. I was very busy, and I missed basically every 2015 Best Picture movie. So I caught up several years later. I also had not seen Warrior. Dan showed it to me. I forget why. Maybe just because. It's definitely the sort of movie that would cater to me. I am the perfect audience for it, and loved it. Like, could not believe that I had missed it, that I really wasn't even aware of what it was, who was in it, what it was about. And I really, really love Spotlight. I do. I actually think it might be my... No, it's not my favorite of the 2015 movies, but
there's another movie from 2015 that everyone has as their favorite, but I'm the one who thinks this deserved it. I'm fine with it.
It's not an undeserving winner at all. But I think, for example, Oppenheimer, I think, is the very first time historically that my favorite movie, when I was old enough to be very cognizant and following the Oscars closely, where my favorite movie actually won Best Picture. So that was fun. But Warrior for me takes it hands down on a personal level. It has so many things that I really appreciate from like a family dynamics standpoint, from a former service member standpoint. Of course, I love the action in it, like 100%. Just hands down, totally tailored for me. Yes, I use the word tailored for fun because, finely tailored.
Was it finely tailored for you? Yes.
Exactly. It was finely tailored, as most of my clothes have to be because, I have no torso whatsoever. But Spotlight is a fantastic film that, should it very likely breeze its way through this part of the bracket, I'm going to be delighted to talk about. So this is one of those matchups that's difficult, but I'm happy that both of these movies exist, and I'm not mad about either one of them moving forward.
Adam?
I am impressed that this is not Warrior versus Creed. And if you had done that.
If Warriors are Black people, it would be. Look, let's be real.
I don't.
There's
look at it, you randomizer. I got the number.
Yeah. Make movies random again, right, Uncle Randomizer? Yeah. Okay, so, Spotlight is great. It's such a strong movie in every sense. I remember people like kind of saying at the time, like, well, like this happened like in the 2000s, so like why are we talking about it now? Because it's still worth talking about, man. Like there's a lot to unpack here. This is something we need to constantly remind ourselves of as a society, and to hold these institutions accountable. And it's a great ensemble film. To this day, it's the reason I'm going to eventually see the movie The Paper with Michael Keaton, because I hear that's pretty good. But Warrior, I really wish I'd seen it in theaters. One of those movies that came out, don't remember when it was in theaters, then heard the good word of mouth, saw it within a year of when it came out, and it completely took me by surprise. I love movies about stuff like this, so like I was kind of hooked into it from the beginning. But as much as I appreciate Tom Hardy's character and I love Nick Nolte's performance in it, I was really taken by how hooked I was with Joel Edgerton's character as a teacher, and his reluctance getting back into it. It creates such a great dynamic between him, his brother, and his father. Deeply emotional to watch, thrilling action-wise. And it's like in this age of MMA where, you know, we constantly have these movies that try and just like focus on the sensationalism of mixed martial arts. This focuses on the athleticism and the emotion behind it. And it's really, really effective. And it's by a narrow margin, but I have to vote for Warrior personally.
Marisol?
Oh, am I the last one?
Second last.
No, go last. Okay.
Oh yeah, this
I can't go last, so
No.
it's her channel.
Neither of us
Baby.
can go last.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Yeah, Taylor's rules, house rules. Okay. I was listening to all of you guys, and I was like, "Yup," and I was like, "Yup." I have no idea which one to pick here. I have no idea. I might as well just pick some names out of a hat. These are two equally special movies for completely different reasons. Spotlight is the first movie. Spotlight was such an exciting film for me because it is the first movie in a long, maybe ever, to think truly embody, succeed, and evoke the feelings of watching All the President's Men. It is totally a next generation of that, this generation's version of that film. And I love that for it. I didn't really think films could be made with that intensity, that stark sense of stripped down sense of realism when you approach such a sensational story. And I think that Spotlight is tremendous in that regard. I was so happy that it won Best Picture. I was like not really surprised, but just really happy. I think it is a Paramount movie of the decade. Warrior is also one of the most emotional sports movies, not only of the decade, just in a long time. It takes that underdog story and takes it to the nth degree and throws in brothers and an alcoholic deadbeat father. And just all these emotional beats from a family that are never feel cheap, never feel schmaltzy, are so earned, are so heart-wrenching. Damn, this is a really tough matchup. These are two. One is a movie stripped of emotion and stripped to just people doing their jobs in the best, there's no drama in Spotlight. There's no sense of the personal lives of these reporters going into it. It's about their commitment to just telling like how important journalism is and integrity is. It's paramount, the messages in Spotlight. But Warrior, on the opposite end, is just such an emotional movie. And it brings up, man, what? Pick a number. Like, pick a number.
I'm not part of this.
Wow, this sucks. Let the record show, I don't want to pick anything here. This is the toughest matchup, absolutely, of this bracket so far. This is a dead heat for me. Like, this is a deadlock. So you two guys, so it's 2-1 for Warrior right now?
2-1 for Warrior.
Sorry.
What is that supposed to do?
Nothing.
Taylor, I got to put fate in your hands. I'm going to vote for Spotlight.
All right. So here's the thing. I haven't seen Warrior, and I don't like Spotlight.
Oh, no. So juicy.
Didn't see that coming.
So juicy. Yeah.
So the fate of this bracket rests on some pretty faulty goings on here for
That's
me.
maybe for the best.
So the fact that you would be interested in seeing Warrior.
So Warrior has been on my list, but Spotlight has been on my list to rewatch because I feel like, I don't know, like I feel like somehow I missed the boat with it because I feel like so many people love it and I just felt so cold watching it and I just like was bored and I was just like, I don't get it. Warrior again, I hear how great it is and I want to see it. And so I'm in this tough place of like, do I just pick the movie that I've at least seen? Or do I pick the one that I want to see, but I have no idea how I'm going to feel about it? Like, that's kind of where I'm at. So, that doesn't help me, really, in my decision-making process. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to be very generous, even though I don't know if it's particularly deserved, because I know how much Jacob loves this movie, that I'm going to vote for Spotlight.
Damn.
And I'm going to rewatch it and give it another chance.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
Thanks, Marisol.
And I was going to give you my digital copy. I was going to give you my digital code.
Shots fired.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
Adam,
joking.
Adam.
I'm joking.
Adam, it was literally
It's
one
a
of
great
the first
movie.
4
I'm
plays
not
I
mad.
bought. I own it down there as well.
Did I say I love Warrior too? I love
No, I'm not mad. I'm just joking.
You guys put it in my hands, all right? I don't know what to tell you.
I wanted to go
man.
last, damn it.
Well, I didn't expect that one to be the tough. Now, I honestly thought Warrior was going to sail through on that one. I didn't think that would be a tough one. This one was the one I thought would be tough. Inception versus Edge of Tomorrow. Mara, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so I thought about this a lot and I didn't make up my mind yet. It's really, really tough. Inception is not my favorite Christopher Nolan, but it's up there. Edge of Tomorrow is just, I have a deep, deep, deep respect for things that can do the Groundhog Day premise and keep me interested. I also have a deep respect for any action movie that makes me excited and also keeps me interested. I love the design of they're mimics, right? Yeah. I like the dynamic between the two of them. I love the physical making of the movie. Like the suits were like, what, 60, 80 pounds or something like that. I'm not doing the conversion to kilograms. Sorry, anybody on the metric system. Cough, cough, Jacob.
I'm learning. I've had to go head first deep. I'm learning the imperial system.
I'm sorry. It's all wrong. But I mean, Inception's special effects were, they still just hold up entirely, completely. I do really enjoy the performances. This is very, very tough for me. They're very different movies. I think that one is viscerally intellectual and the other one is more viscerally just like lizard brain stimulating / a little more emotional. And I find them both endlessly rewatchable. Absolutely. I could put either of them on right now, or if this was old school cruising around on cable, or if I were at a hotel, click, click, click. Either one of these are on. I'm stopping. I'm watching from wherever they are, and I'm happy. But I think I've decided, and I don't know if I'm necessarily elaborating clearly on why, but I'm going to pick Edge of Tomorrow, and that might be partially because of, again, the degree of difficulty of keeping me interested in a Groundhog Day premise and pulling it off. Also, I do really like the source material. I think they made a huge mistake with the name change thing, because I remember there was a friend of mine that I was describing this movie to, and I was like, oh my God, Edge of Tomorrow, you have to see it, you have to see it. and he was using the alternate title, and he's like, "You have to see this movie," and I'm like, "Bro, that's this movie," and he's like, "No, it definitely isn't." I'm like, "Bro, it definitely is. That's just the other title," and he's like, "Nah." And I proved it to him, and I was like, "Yeah." So also just a terrible tragedy of marketing, because I think that's a reason why a lot of people were confused by that movie. Again, Inception will very likely sail through this one. Not mad about it. Not even a little bit.
Marisol.
I agree with a lot of what you're saying, Mara. I think these are two extremely high concept sci-fi films that are both marvelously entertaining. I think there's a lot of parallels in that sense. I do think that one of these films has the room to like actually take its time to build up and fully, and has a breathing room to really let its build up of its concepts breathe and then deliver more satisfyingly. And I think the other is too worried about cramping it into a time frame. I think that Edge of Tomorrow is a marvelously entertaining film. I love the subversion of Tom Cruise, and who's been this alpha, like I can do anything, Ethan Hunt type his whole career, that he's this complete coward. I love this complete flip of it, that he's this sniveling coward who gets thrown in and has to relearn how to become a hero again in the movie. I love that Tom Cruise took that at this point in his career. The parallels of him facing his own mortality, like Tom Cruise is just an action figure and a movie persona. I love those layers to Edge of Tomorrow. I do think the movie is just too rushed for its own good. I just think that, like, but that's also part of its charm, that the movie just keeps clipping, and you're just along for the ride. That's part of the roller coaster effect of Edge of Tomorrow. At the end of the day, as cool as like the Normandy inspired repetition of that beach attack in the first act of Edge of Tomorrow is, I gotta be honest, nothing in Edge of Tomorrow, no set piece is as cool as the simplicity of flipping a freaking hallway in the middle of Inception. Christopher Nolan was like, what if we just spin the room? Like, it's just the simplicity of that with the spinning van at the same time. I remember the goosebumps that I got in theaters watching that in Inception. And that is just, I think Nolan's obsession with time, maybe besides Memento, has never been at a high more than it is, and more clearly realized and more enthrallingly realized than it is in Inception. And right down to the closing shot of this movie that just had the audience literally gasping and screaming at the screen when it cut to black. I just think, well, I think that Edge of Tomorrow is more digestible popcorn and highs, and the artistic highs and the cerebral highs of Inception just outweigh it, because I think the movie just has time to breathe and to really flesh out its director's vision. And though Edge of Tomorrow, great movie, great groundhog sci-fi product, it just doesn't quite, just a little maybe too rushed for its own good.
Taylor.
I don't like this one. I'd like you to know that. This one's tough for me because I was so taken by surprise by Edge of Tomorrow when I did eventually get around to watching it. For all the reasons that have been mentioned, it's such a subversion of the kind of character we've gotten used to Tom Cruise playing, even at that point in his career. I think Emily Blunt is fantastic in it. I think she plays off of the character he's giving us so well. I also tend to have trouble like really getting into Groundhog Day premises. They have to be like really, really nailing it, and they have to have a really interesting reason as to why they're doing it for me to really buy in. And I just think that it's used really effectively here, and I really buy into the lore, and I really buy into the world. And I just have a really great time watching it. Inception is one of those movies where you bring it up and it's like everyone has something great to say about Inception. The cast is incredible. The set and production design, the effects, the story is so intriguing and engaging, and really, I think, inspired so many different kinds of stories we've gotten since then, whether that's visually or story premise. And it's one of those movies where you look at it and you just have to acknowledge kind of culturally what it's done. But it's really tough for me because it's like I don't have a super emotional connection to it. I usually appreciate Nolan more than I think I love Nolan, kind of from just like a objective perspective. So this one's hard for me because I feel like at the end of the day, I probably enjoy Edge of Tomorrow more, but I also acknowledge that I think Inception's probably better for a lot of reasons. And I think I actually enjoyed Inception more rewatching it recently, because I remember watching it the first time and appreciating it more than I liked it. So this one is really hard to kind of figure out how, like, which one I kind of want to push forward. I think just based on the sake of kind of how I'm viewing the bracket, I think, you know, this being the best movies, I think I'm going to have to vote for Inception.
Okay. Adam.
Where I rank both of these movies especially high is how much you need to explain them when you watch them with your parents. Because, yeah.
Oh no, that just brought me back. I saw Inception with my parents in theaters. It was a rough experience.
I will never forget watching Inception with
They
my
were
parents.
upset.
And pausing it so many times. If I had just, I wish I'd seen that in the theater with them, for the love of God. It would have been so much easier. But Inception is a movie that is the definition of rewatchable, because every time I've watched it, I get some new fun perspective. It's challenging and it's puzzle-like, but not in a way where it's patting itself on the back. Whereas, like, I have been very upfront about, not in this show, but just in life, about how Tenet's not my favorite. And Inception is something I'm happy to rewatch, and Tenet's something I avoid. And I feel like Nolan was trying to recapture that high a little bit, and I get why, because Inception was very special. It was the reason why Inception's special, though, is because it taps into our intellectual curiosity about dreams. And you can go so many places with that concept. And when you turn it into a sci-fi concept, it makes it so exciting. And the way he deconstructs it and adds all these layers to it, quite literally. The way the action is visualized makes so much sense. And then Edge of Tomorrow, I saw after its initial theatrical release. And yeah, it's so cool to see Tom buck tradition. But quick shout out to Paxton, one of, or his final film, right? Like
one of,
right at the tail end. And playing a great, asshole military general. Lots of fun. I love every beat when Tom Cruise goes back, and the way Paxton as an actor plays off of his increasing awareness of the situation and his reaction to that. And I think it does such a good job of messing with the time loop stuff that, as we've discussed in Happy Death Day and Groundhog Day. Edge of Tomorrow nails that. It didn't market itself at all. It's so surprising that this movie didn't have a wider audience at the time. And I've heard so much talk over the years of, why don't we get a sequel? Sometimes it's okay if we don't. And I think this movie's special. And I think a sequel would completely lose the thread. I think Doug Liman did something very, very tight and unique with Edge of Tomorrow. So I wanted to give it its lip service, but I will vote for Inception.
Wow. Okay. So I am also going to end up voting for Inception because I kind of am like you. My first couple of years with this movie, I was very much more, I appreciate this film. I really appreciate a lot of this instead of like connecting with it. Whereas in Edge of Tomorrow, the first time I saw it, my God, this is just awesome. And I loved it from the start, and I just constantly loved it. But Inception, slowly, I have really started to connect with it a lot more emotionally. I think the final, I think that final 10 minutes in the airport is so emotionally engrossing and so just it kind of just has this feeling. It's funny, it's strange to have both Edge of Tomorrow and Inception kind of both have that same sort of ending, where it's like they're both woken up and kind of going through this like kind of silent journey as they enter, like as they're going to their final point, I guess. And I just think the way Inception has slowly connected with me more over time, and has given me these characters that I have just started to fall more and more in love with, and this really engrossing story, and the score. The slight edge to the score, as great as Edge of Tomorrow's is, Hans Zimmer, what Hans Zimmer does with the Inception score, like Time alone is just up there as one of the greatest score pieces of music we've ever gotten in film. So I am going to go with Inception, and that means Inception moves on.
Woo!
All right. Next up, we have Straight Outta Compton versus Bad Times.
Okay.
El Royale.
All right, dance is over.
All right, Marisol, I'll let you start with that one.
I mean, fine. This is a goofy matchup for me. I mean, look. Okay, I'll pick who I'm gonna pick. Look, that's why I kind of wish you told us some of these beforehand, because I was like, I gotta hash this out. But no, you know what? Fuck it, we'll do it live. In the immortal words of Bill O'Reilly. You know, the only time I'll ever quote him, trust me. But yeah, full disclosure, I'm not super crazy about both of these movies. Like either of these movies. I know that's wild to say. I think that they're both quite competently made movies. I think they're good movies. I think they're
competently made?
You can leave. Oh, you gotta go for that one. No.
Which one's the parent here?
Like, this is a weird, like, this is a locked one for me in a weird sense, completely different sense. Straight Outta Compton. Let me get this out. Straight Outta Compton, I think I think it's pretty by the numbers. When it comes to these stories of like the rise and fall of like these pop groups and everything, but nobody, never seen it done with NWA. I think that I just love that we get this traditional musical biopic treatment with one of the baddest rap groups of the 20th century. I think it is cool. I love that this was a kicked off career point. This is such a career starter for everybody in this movie. Corey Hawkins, Jason Mitchell, O'Shea Jackson. Like, I love Aldous Hodge, who was already doing his own thing. But I love that this was like a career jumping off point for all of the members of NWA, the actors who played it. Love Giamatti as their manager. Really love it. A manager you can actually like in a movie instead of being the evil baddie. I just think that there's so many funny moments and great star-making moments in Straight Outta Compton, but I still feel it's generic bones throughout the entire movie. I always get so torn whenever I watch it. Man, but I'm happy, really happy it exists. Bad Times at El Royale, I'm hit or miss with Drew Goddard. I think that it's kind of the problem I had with, no, I'm not going to mention another movie. It's just, I think it's a lot of flair and a lot of style, but I think that the mystery is like superfluous in Bad Times at El Royale. I love the cast to bits. You got Hemsworth, Cynthia Erivo in there. I just think that it's all in service of something not as juicy and mysterious as it thinks it is. I think whenever I watch Bad Times at El Royale, I've seen it twice, I think it's a little self-satisfied. I'm in the middle of the road with both of these movies. I'm gonna pick one. I'm gonna pick Straight Outta Compton though, cause yeah, Ice Cube. That's what I got.
I think that Bad Times at the El Royale, I think I love it more than everybody on the planet, probably. I think that's probably a good way to phrase that. Just with the general reception I feel like the movie gets, which is fine. Like, I can vibe with it in my own little corner. That's cool. I have so much fun with Bad Times. I love the tone. I like the aesthetic. I think the vibe is fun. It's not the most like intricate or complicated movie by any means, but I just kind of enjoy the ride. Like, I'm kind of just there with it, going along with it, and I enjoy it when I do. I think Cynthia Erivo is great in it. I just think she's so commanding when she's on screen, and I love getting to see her in a role like that. I think that John Hamm's great in it. Jeff Bridges is great. We get to see our boy Lewis Pullman in it for a bit, which is awesome. We get to see the woman of the moment, the girl of the moment, Kaylee Spaney in it. If you guys haven't seen Priscilla, definitely watch Priscilla. I'm not gonna recommend Civil War, but she's great in it.
I'm not
gonna recommend it, but she's awesome in it. So take that for what you will. But I just have so much fun with the movie. I vibe with it really hard. So I'm just gonna go with it because I love it.
Adam.
What I think is interesting about Drew Goddard as a filmmaker, at least with this and Cabin in the Woods, is how I think both concepts would make really good television series. And I like Cabin in the Woods as a movie. I enjoy it a lot, but I think just based on the premise alone, it could be expanded. And conversely, Bad Times at the El Royale feels like something that was workshopped as a series and condensed back into a film, because I found it entertaining. I ended up watching it. It was one of those movies I missed a question about in the Schmodown. And so I watched it. And I was like, you son of a bitch movie. And I was like, this is all right. This is okay. I will say this. That movie is the reason I'm so excited to see Chris Hemsworth in Furiosa, because he's a great villain. I like seeing him as the bad guy. Really, really enjoyable. And he's one of the highlights of the film for me, as is Jeff Bridges. Really like how obviously he's not a priest, and everyone knows he's not a priest. And that's what everyone brings up every time they meet him within like 30 seconds. They're like, you're not a priest. He's like, but I am. It's like, no. All right, boom. Yeah. The creep and pervert factor is, really lurid in that movie. But also it does feel so inspired by Tarantino that at times, it's hard to ignore his shadow over the movie. That was one thing I took away from that. Straight Outta Compton, very straightforward in a lot of ways, but about an era of music that hasn't been dealt with in a straightforward manner in a lot of ways. F. Gary Gray tackles it with complete engagement and respect and love for the era of music. Opened my eyes to a lot of things that were going on back then that I thought I knew about. It has Jacob's husband, Corey Hawkins, in it, which is awesome. And then
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for someone to mention it.
Yeah, Jacob's other betrothed. Sorry, Taylor.
I just love that people who aren't like tuned in are just gonna be like, what did I miss?
Context. Nobody is a bigger fan of Corey Hawkins than Jacob London, everybody. Jacob London has been citing that Corey Hawkins is going to win an Oscar since 2020.
Yeah. He believes in him so much. He thinks he's the next mayor of Gotham. He loves him so much.
You could do worse.
I could.
But yeah, Straight Outta Compton, really, really, what I think is so cool about it is that that's a movie my mom has not seen. But I know, like, I could sit her down and be like, "You're gonna watch Straight Outta Compton." She's like, "What?" And I'm like, "You're watching this." And she would walk away from that and she would get something out of it. And that's music she's never listened to, never will listen to, I'll be honest. But she would get something out of that movie. And I think that's a strength of it. So I vote for Straight Outta Compton.
Mara.
The mom test.
Oh yeah.
So Taylor, you are not alone. I just want you to know. I'm also very much with the vibes at Bad Times at the El Royale. I like that it feels very singular. I struggle to find another movie that just kind of feels like that movie feels. And I like the distinctiveness, just especially when compared with Straight Outta Compton, only because of what Marisol said, where it doesn't necessarily feel like the most distinctive musical biopic, which that's the only thing. I love musical biopics just in the sense that biopics in general are a type of film I really love because I love learning something about something that I probably don't know a lot about already, which is a type of media that I've been aware of, and then it'll be somewhat fictionalized for my entertainment. Like, that's just a great recipe for me. But they all feel so formulaic that sometimes I find myself disappointed. And I'm not saying I felt disappointed per se by this, but the factor that is distinguishing the two of them for me and making it an easy choice for me to pick Bad Times at the El Royale is because, like it or hate it, which I do very much like it, Bad Times at the El Royale is very distinctive. It's a big swing. And the saddest thing that any film can be to me is mediocre. And whether it hits for you or it misses, it swung for something. And it has a very specific aesthetic. It has, I like the period element of it as well. I love the actors. It's a great ensemble cast. Again, whether the movie as a story, as a mystery, I do think the performances overall are just actually very good. Again, besides whether or not you like the story. But I do think that it's cohesive in that the people in it are the thing that if any one person I think had been cast differently, I think I would feel very differently about the movie. Very, very differently about it. Mm-hmm. But I enjoy going back and rewatching it. The first time I saw it, though, I'll admit it, I walked out of the theater and I was like, I don't know if I love this. I liked it, but I was like, I don't know if I love it. And upon rewatching, I was like, I really, really enjoy this. It's weird. It's my kind of weird. So that's where my vote is going in this round, surprisingly. So Taylor, you are not alone.
So I'm very much like you, Marisol, with both of these movies. I'm very mixed on both. I think there are some really strong points about both, and I think there are some very weak points about both. I think Bad Times has some really strong moments because I really do love Drew Goddard as a writer and as a filmmaker. I think his script is the script that saved Ridley Scott's career. I think that Cabin in the Woods is one of the best horror movies that we've had in the last decade. Like, I really love him as a filmmaker and as a writer. Straight Outta Compton has some phenomenal performances in it. I think Corey Hawkins is amazing. I think O'Shea Jackson's fantastic. I think that what's his name? The guy who plays Eazy-E.
Jason Mitchell.
Jason Mitchell is he has the scene in the movie, but I also think it has the Bo Rap effect of you are really, really lightly glossing over everything that happened in this era, and you are doing you are doing this band and this group what should have been a really grounded and like, hey, these are the guys that changed music, and you're doing them a massive disservice. And I think that's what this film it does. And that's kind of where I'm at with both of them. Is like Straight Outta Compton, I think, does NWA a massive disservice. And as someone who's not a big I didn't grow up listening to NWA. I didn't grow up listening to this.
Don't sell yourself short, Jacob.
But like having grown up like having gone back and studied the 90s and what happened during the 90s when all of this was going on, and going, oh, you've completely ignored all of this and all of the stuff going around why this group was important. I'm going to go with Bad Times, because I just think it's Straight Outta Compton is Bohemian Rhapsody, and we just went to town on insulting Bo Rhapsody a month ago, and it has the same problems. It has the same where, cool, you are just sticking to a formula. You're not trying anything different, and that is what it just frustrates me about that film. Whereas in Bad Times, it's taking swings. It might not hit all of them, but it's at least trying to do something different. So Bad Times at the El Royale moves on. Next up, we have Source Code versus Fighting with My Family. Adam, I'll start with you.
Okay. All right. Source Code was a movie I finally saw for this week. Hadn't ever seen it. And not because I'd avoided it, but things happen. And we have a lot of movies in the bracket this week that have some overlap, like this and Edge of Tomorrow, and even Your Name to an extent. Have some really interesting perspective and time jump elements to them. And what I like about Source Code is I feel like I got the sense watching it that Duncan Jones set out to make a really tight 90-minute movie and wanted to hone it in. And the movie is so focused, and it has a great hook with the basic premise of this character immersed in what's essentially a memory, and whether or not he can manipulate the events within that memory or just re-experience them. And Gyllenhaal's always a great vehicle for genre stories, any movies really, but he's playing sort of an everyman guy in this, but he's still really, really fun and dynamic. Michelle Monaghan is playing Michelle Monaghan's usual, like, she's a great actor, I think, in a lot of stuff. But in this era, she was, having to play this character a lot. But what I like about her performance in this is, even though it starts off as one note, you get more layers to her throughout. And Vera Farmiga just crushing it with the exposition in this, like way more than she did in Godzilla King of the Monsters. So like, I like, she's basically staring at a webcam this whole movie. And I'm like, Vera, you're doing well for yourself. So really impressed with all of that. Fighting with My Family, when it came out, I did not initially seek this film out. I had kind of written it off. I was like, oh, okay, this looks like WWE patting itself on the back. And it was about an era. I tuned out of WWE in the early 2000s, wrestling in general. I was, 80s, 90s, early 2000s. And then just, I studied the Cliffs Notes after that. So Fighting with My Family is about an era that I'm not engaged with. So when I finally saw it, I was so pleasantly surprised with not only how funny it was, but how relatable it all is, with the sibling dynamics, the family dynamics, but also this makes a great double feature with A League of Their Own. It's a sibling sports story. Seeing these two characters go and achieve their dream at the same time, but in different paths, and it doesn't fully work out for them the same way. That's one thing that struck me after I saw the movie. I was like, why do I like this so much? I was like, oh yeah, it reminds me of A League of Their Own. Florence Pugh gives a fantastic performance. The Rock walks through the movie, which I could have done without. Not offended by it, but he doesn't add much. Vince Vaughn does the better version of his character from Hacksaw Ridge in this movie. So I vote for Fighting with My Family with gusto, but I think Source Code was pretty damn slick. I really enjoyed it. So shout out to Source Code, but I vote Fighting with My Family.
Sorry, I'm dying.
Please don't.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Source Code, I haven't actually rewatched. I saw it around the time that it came out. And it's just kind of one of those movies that's like stuck with me. Like I just kind of think about it every once in a while. I don't know, like it is just well made. It's a good story. And I think the performances are really good. And it is one that I like think about revisiting and just kind of never do. So I really enjoy Source Code. Fighting with My Family, I don't really remember did we have a screening for Fighting with My Family or did we just watch it?
We just went and saw it.
Okay, yeah. So Fighting with My Family, I'm not a huge wrestling person. Like I don't really know a lot about it. I don't really go out of my way to watch it. It wasn't like something I grew up with in my house, really. So I didn't have any preconceived like notions or opinions or anything that I was really bringing into this movie. And I had a lot of fun with it. It was my first real introduction to Florence Pugh, and I think she's so fun in it. She does a really great job with the character. I think Lena Headey and Nick Frost have awesome chemistry together. They are so funny as the parents. The family dynamic is really fun to watch, and they all have really great chemistry together. As has been mentioned, like The Rock being in it is kind of just like, I mean, I guess you had to put him there, so whatever. Like, it doesn't really take away my enjoyment, but it's like, okay, fine, whatever. Like, you could have taken that out, and it would have just been as effective as a movie without that. But I get it. And I really found myself enjoying it, and I found myself walking out of seeing the movie not feeling like I had just watched a biopic. Like, it doesn't really have that kind of exhausting biopic formula. It more just feels like they, wanted to make a movie about this kind of specific point in time for this character. She's a real person, but for Paige. And I was really just pleasantly surprised by it. I just had so much fun with it. And I think Stephen Merchant did a really great job with directing it. I think the comedy really works really well. So yeah, I'm gonna vote for Fighting with My Family.
Mara.
I enjoy Source Code quite a bit. The only thing I have to say is I do take some qualms with the idea that we remove the bodily autonomy of a human being, and then we're like, oh my god, it's so romantic. Like, it's kind of gross. But the movie up to that point, when it's just like pseudo real timelines, whatever, it's like, okay, that part's fun. But the end, I'm always just like, ugh, okay. But I love Gyllenhaal, so I'll still rewatch it. But Fighting with My Family was such a delightful surprise because I wouldn't even say that I wasn't a big wrestling person. I would say I had absolutely no fucking interest in wrestling whatsoever my entire life. So it wasn't like I didn't care about the movie. I just went into it completely cold. Like, oh, sure, I'm probably going to learn a lot because I don't know anything about wrestling at all. And I think that proves a strength of the movie, that somebody who does not know, who knows jack shit about wrestling could understand the movie. I was taught enough about wrestling and about how things work that I understood the movie and I understood the stakes. I understood why the sibling rivalry existed. I understood why he was upset. Like they made a digestible movie that both serviced diehard fans, because many people that are super huge into wrestling very much like the movie, and then people like me who didn't know a damn thing very much like the movie. This was also my first very big Florence Pugh, so that was a great introduction. And the casting, the chemistry between all of them, so entertaining, very, very funny, very sincere, and very rewatchable movie. And again, just for a person that has no interest whatsoever in wrestling, to make me just really want to go rewatch a movie that's about wrestling, and not just about wrestling, but to chronicle the story of a real person in real wrestling, which, don't get me wrong, wrestling has a lot of problems, a lot of problems. Mostly administratively. I'm not talking about the wrestlers themselves. They are frequently exploited. They have lots of problems getting adequate healthcare and treatment for the issues that arise from them being essentially stunt performers. My heart goes out to you. But the movie itself, what a delightful surprise. I walked out feeling so happy. The movie made me very happy. So easy choice here.
Marisol.
Yeah, close. This is a very close battle. These are both fresh watches and rewatches this week for me. Source Code, a lot of good faith for Duncan Jones. I love high concept, small plot, like big ideas, small plot sci-fi, and Source Code epitomizes that. I love when you get this high concept with sci-fi, but you keep the story really tight and like intimate and don't try to over-explain too much. You know, it's funny watching that with like Edge of Tomorrow, where I think the scope is like the end of the world is at stake with this high. You combine that with super high concept sci-fi. It's always a lot. And Source Code is so narrow with the focus of it. And it really rides on Jake Gyllenhaal, centering on this performance. Jake Gyllenhaal is so expressive. He's so great with a character that doesn't have, on paper, doesn't have that much depth, but he injects so much into it and he carries this whole movie. And I love how unexpectedly emotional this movie gets. Like you said, it starts with a simple time loop concept and then it expands into something that talks about, like you're touching on, Mara, the ethics of medicine, the ethics of like medicinal practices, like what we deal with in the afterlife. It has so much unexpected emotional heft and simple but impactful, like emotional weight. And it really hit me rewatching Source Code. Like I just love it. I wish the movie had ended like 4 minutes before it actually ended, and I think it would have been pitch perfect before it got a little too schmaltzy. And then in the other corner, you got Fighting with My Family, which is just it's like this massive mix of energy of like Coda with like Sing Street with like Warrior with like kind of all of these movies, like all of this kind of energy of high energy, high spirited, dysfunctional family, but just like inspiring and uplifting at the same time. And the entire cast shines in the movie. It's like you all said, it's awkward when the movie stops and they show those like insert reshoot shots of like when they're like, hey, The Rock, we have you for like a day. Can you shoot these couple scenes that we could just insert into the movie? He's like, all right, here, kid, go on. The Rock says you should go be a great wrestler. Now get out there. And I'm like, it didn't need that in the movie. It doesn't overshadow the rest of the movie because it's too strong. Fighting with My Family is such a wonderful underdog story and such a feel-good movie. This is really, really close to me. And I really want everybody to watch both of these. I don't think anyone either is particularly like ridiculously stronger than the other, but I shed a little tear rewatching Source Code this week. So I'm going to vote for Source Code. But
well,
yeah, both are wonderful.
Well, Fighting with My Family moves on, but I also would have given a point for Source Code. I think I agree. Like I really like Fighting with My Family and I really like Source Code. They're both like, I really like these movies, but I would have gone with Source Code because I just think Source Code's a really great movie. All right, next.
I'll say one more thing for Fighting with My Family. I'll say one more thing for Fighting with My Family that I forgot to say that I wanted to say. I watched it and I felt like my experience of the Schmodown when I was watching Fighting with My Family. Like I will say that one thing. Like I felt like that, like somebody who's really passionate about like what they do, but then they're like, hey, you have to like pretend to be like a character and say all these things and do all this like kayfabe, and you have to get up there and like Florence Pugh's like, what? And I like felt that experience so much when I was watching that movie. And I love how Fighting with My Family tracks like how difficult, how passionate, like you said, people are for wrestling, but how difficult and how much of an art and a theatrical skill and an art it is, like performing on top of doing this grueling like physical activity to be a performer and put on this character and put on a show. I love how it taps into that. I can't think about another movie, maybe The Wrestler, that really taps into that aspect. But yeah.
All right, next up, A Quiet Place versus Warhorse. Taylor.
I All right. I have actually seen War Horse.
Oh yeah, you have to.
Yes, I have. My track record. Jacob like rolls his eyes and is like pained by it. My track record with Spielberg films is not great, but I have seen War Horse. And
It's okay. We'll get to Schindler's List later. It's okay.
I don't particularly think that War Horse is a memorable film. I think it was okay from what I remember. Real talk, the only reason I watched it is because Tom Hiddleston is in it for like 3 minutes. So that was what got me to do that. Anyway, Quiet Place. That was one of the coolest theater experiences that we had, like in recent memory. Everyone was so locked in, like just terrified to like make noise, like they were gonna affect the things happening on screen if they made a noise, and the characters were going to have to pay for it. Like the sound design of the movie and just the way that they chose to shoot it and to like have sound or to have lack of sound, and just like kind of the delicate balance that they struck to be able to give it that feeling of just, you're not relaxed. I was not relaxed for one single second of that movie. I was like, something bad is just always like, it's just, you're on the precipice of it constantly for the whole movie. And I just think it was such a clever, cool idea. I think the cast is great. I think that it's really cool that we've actually kept getting movies kind of in this universe that all do something a little bit different. I'm really excited to see the new one that's going to be coming out here shortly. I just think it's so cool. It's just one of those movies that's cool, and that's like the kind of like quote unquote horror that I like, where I'm like, this isn't going to scar me for life, but it is going to scare me a little bit, and it's going to have me on the edge of my seat, and it's really, really great. I love it. I love A Quiet Place. I'm voting for A Quiet Place.
Mara.
I consider War Horse personally to be kind of in the lower quadrant of the Spielberg filmography. Yeah, that enough said. A Quiet Place is, I think, one of the superior horror movies of the century. I think it was such a smart idea to do something so subdued, especially because the moments where we do get kind of it's a very minimal jump scare movie, which I applaud, because jump scares are just the easiest possible way to elicit a response from an audience, because no matter what, no matter how much you know something is about to happen, if there is a loud noise, the human body will respond. You cannot control that. It's lizard brain. So it's like, oh my God, you scared me. Congrats. You can make boom, boom, bang, bang. Like, proud of you. But like when they do make things happen in this movie, they feel so earned. I think it was really well cast. Noah Jupe and Millicent, what's her name? Millicent something. Pretty sure it's Millicent something.
Yeah.
Someone's Googling it for me. Anyways, but again, great child actors, because I generally don't connect super great with like little kid people. Go ahead. Who is it, Jacob?
Simmons.
Simmons. Thank you. This is why I never played in Big Boy Schmoedown, for that exact reason. But yeah. But like such great performances from the two of them as well. Especially going into the sequel, where I love that they actually became even more of the focus. And I'm also very much looking forward to the new movie. If they made some other more War Horse movie, I would not be excited whatsoever. So that tells me that A Quiet Place is clearly a franchise that I'm invested in. And no matter how many war ponies that there would be, I would not get any more invested. So the stables are closed. A Quiet Place it is.
Adam.
Look, I know like this should be an easy vote, and it is. But as someone who paid to watch War Horse for this show, because I missed the streaming window.
You paid to see it in theaters, and I was like, "Hey, meet you and me both." And then you would like for this show. I was like, "Oh God, oh."
The entire week telling him not to do this.
Oh, I
All it
broke
was
them.
War Horse.
I refuse because on top of it being one of the only movies I hadn't seen in this week's bracket, it also was literally the last Spielberg movie I hadn't seen. I had to do it. I mean, I couldn't get up to this point and then not watch War Horse, right?
Oh,
I watched it. I watched all 2 hours and 27 minutes and felt it. I appreciate that Spielberg wanted to make a World War I movie. I think it's hilarious that he took something like imagine All Quiet on the Western Front, but you know, Air Bud. You know, like it's like, you know, because the horse perspective in this movie is so funny. I'm sorry. I know
if
it's
it had been a golden retriever, that would have made the movie so dope.
Yes. But the way they filmed the horse acting in this, it gets really funny after a while because you start getting into that wavelength. And I just really, after a while, after this horse goes from like place to place, drifts from one side of the war to the other, and everywhere he goes, everyone who crosses his path is like, this is a majestic horse, suddenly drops dead. Like I was so shaken by the casualness of this horse's wake of destruction as he goes from one end of the continent to the other. And then little Albert, the main kid, like this kid, I appreciate someone caring about their horse or their dog. I do. And look, I know I'm talking about this movie more than I should. I get it, but I watched it. I have to talk about it. Okay. So he is so obsessed with this horse to an unhealthy amount that like he tries to enlist illegally and he can't. And then when he's legal enough to enlist, he does. And it's several years after the horse is gone, but he's like, I'm going to find my horse. I'm like, the horse doesn't remember you. I mean, it's a movie, so he does, but we know the horse doesn't remember Albert. He's moved on.
As an equestrian, I disagree.
Okay. But this particular horse would have forgotten that kid because he was annoying as piss. All right. And he was like, come on, let's plow, Joey. And you know Joey didn't want to plow. You know Joey was happy to join the war to get away from Albert.
So
That's
like,
my point.
I enlist. Yeah.
So I guess, all right, I am undermining my point, Mara. Even if he was avoiding him, he definitely remembers Albert. So yeah, you're right. With all that in mind, this movie was so silly, but it was beautifully filmed, great score. Literally takes a moment from All Quiet on the Western Front and changes it and just adds a horse, which is kind of funny. But I vote for A Quiet Place. I'm not going to get into A Quiet Place right now. I'm going to do that later, but I just watched War Horse. You had to hear about it, Jacob. Okay?
Marisol.
Yeah, no, I'm great. I'm so happy you decided to. After I spent, like I said, a whole week telling you not to watch War Horse.
And you had to hear about it too because you kept telling me not to. I had to watch it.
Great. Welcome to my life. But yes, no, I mean, duh. I mean, of course, it's A Quiet Place. I'm sorry. Yeah. War Horse is firmly in the lower fifth of like Spielberg movies ever made. Like, it's just firmly in there. It's so goofy, and I'm sorry, but like, yeah, it's really weird. I'm not mad at War Horse, although I think it is so long and so boring. But I just like to romanticize this whole idea is like, what does a horse think when he's in battle? You know what a horse
Get me the
thinks?
fuck out.
Yeah, you know what a horse thinks when he's battling? Like, what the fuck is that? Like, he's like, why am I here? I don't want to be here. The horse doesn't care about dying for the country. The horse is like, where's grass? I got to shit. That's a really loud cannon. And it's just like, I can't. War Horse is very goofy. A handsomely made goof fest, and with
that's the blurb they put on the
with
poster.
all these great with Benedict shows up there, David Thewlis shows up in there, Tom Hiddleston shows up there, Emily Watson's in there, all these great actors, and it's in service of something very, very silly, a lot of puffery. So it's just obviously A Quiet Place. Let's move on.
All right, moving on.
War Horse though, Jacob. War Horse.
Yeah.
Look what you did, Jacob.
I know. The Town versus Frozen. Adam, the one with a child. I'm
Yeah.
How many times have you watched Frozen?
Not as much as Moana, but pretty damn close. And then Frozen 2, I think, has eclipsed it. Because yeah. Frozen is, I don't know. Like what are we supposed to say about this movie at this point? Like, it's so there.
We could just say let it go and vote for the
Say,
town.
let it go, Adam.
I'll let myself go into the unknown. And
wrong movie.
Right. I rewatched The Town, I think it was last year, and I really enjoy The Town. My biggest issue with it is it is Boston Heat, and that's fine. It's fine that it's Boston Heat, but it's so Boston Heat that I'm thinking about Heat the whole time I watch the movie. and Rebecca Hall's character doesn't deserve any of that. Big issues with the way Ben Affleck manipulates the situation to get to know her. It's got some creepy About Time vibes. I'm not gonna lie. All right. No, his whole approach to getting to know her is completely fucked.
Oh yeah.
It's disgusting. I really don't.
He's a bank robber. I don't think we're supposed to root for him.
No. We're not. But also, I'm stuck with the guy the whole damn movie. And he's not a complicated protagonist. He's a frustrating protagonist. He's like, I'm not like, oh man, what a flawed genius of a heist person, because that's his official title. I'm getting all that out of the way because I really do like a lot about The Town. I like the action in it and everything. But I'll be honest, when I rewatched it stepped down for me. I got a serious ceiling with Frozen. Okay, I do. Son of a bitch. Look.
Oh shit!
My daughter's not watching. don't tell her about it. I'll vote for the town.
I'm going to tell her.
Fine, tell her. But yeah, I'll vote for The Town. But I'm kind of mixed on both of these movies. With Frozen, I'm mixed because I'm just exhausted with its existence. I want to judge the movie on its own merits as much as I can. Kind of hard. Singing's great. It's animated well. The characters have big heads. Let's go. I'll say The Town. Let's move on.
Mara?
I think that Frozen is a very flawed story movie that is saved by having just maybe some of the best and catchiest Disney music sung by some of the best people ever. Because if you look at it as a story, especially given the pivots that they made, and just look at it structurally and like plot and where it goes, it kind of sucks, but it's enjoyable. It is pleasant to watch. It's pleasant to hear. Yes, it's in my car playlist and my shower playlist. Like, the music slaps. It totally slaps. And it does have great lessons for kids. I am not a kid. And I'm probably higher on The Town than anyone else here. I think it's fucking great. I really I'm there for Renner. I gotta be honest. I'm there for Renner, especially when it's like, hey, what would you say if I tell you I gotta go like find a guy and break his legs or something? And it's like, all right, when do we leave or whatever? Like, I'm there for his character, for sure. I really do like the John Hamm of it all as well. And Blake Lively playing straight up fucking white trash and playing it so well. Like, man, I'm here to see it. Like, I don't know what it is about her, but I'm like, girl, I want to buy you a beer. And I just want to see where this goes. And I know you probably have at least an STI, but I'll figure it out. Like, I'm, you know, whatever. She's just kind of strangely hot in it. I don't know, but no, I had not seen Heat before I saw The Town, so I don't have the bias that Adam has. However, having seen Heat, I 100% agree with every single thing he said. However, just in this specific conversation, I'm going to still vote for The Town, but partially because I do think that even if it is imitating or heavily homaging something that perhaps might be greater or superior to it, even it as an imitation of the thing that's superior to it, it is still superior to Frozen imitating Hans Christian Andersen, a thing that's far superior to it. So I'm going to vote for The Fack in Town.
Taylor.
Okay, so haven't seen The Town. Frozen has a really great voice cast. Like, I think, as was mentioned, maybe one of the best like voiced casts that is in a movie like this. The songs are really catchy, but I will literally never vote for Frozen ever for anything. Ever. Not ever. Not ever. If this was Frozen 2, maybe we'd have like a slight discussion about it. But I will literally never vote for Frozen ever. I was sick of this movie the day it came out, and it has not left me alone since. So it's gonna be sight unseen The Town for me, please.
Marisol.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna be like the only person saying this about Frozen. Really, I look. What is Frozen about? I dare you say what's Frozen about. Quick, go.
Sisters.
Okay,
and
yeah,
stuff.
no. All right, you lost. It's just like nobody knows the plot. Like you're saying, Martin, nobody knows what the plot of Frozen is because there is no plot. And it's fine. It's just like it's sweet, and I love that it caught the heart of like millions of children, and it was such a hit. I love that about it. It's always special when children fall in love with something like that. But Frozen 2 is better than Frozen. I said it. And The Town ain't no like masterpiece, but it was a gut punch into the 2010s and one of the best heist movies in a while since the Ocean's movies. And we love the starkness of it. Ben Affleck proved that Gone Baby Gone wasn't a fluke. He had a solid follow-up feature with this. And it kept raising the profile on Boston being this gritty city that was stark for like a lot of really great crime capers. It is Boston Heat, all of the things you're saying. I think that Set It Off is an even better like heist movie if you really want to compare it, like these kind of down on their luck people trying to use bank robberies to get out of their situations. I think Set It Off blows The Town out of the water. Watch Set It Off, everybody. But definitely The Town over Frozen. No more talk about Frozen. Let's move on. Let it go.
I'm gonna echo something Mara said, where like Jeremy Renner in The Town's incredible, and the 1-2 punch of going The Hurt Locker and then The Town.
Mm-hmm.
It was like I've seen people like people now go, why was Jeremy Renner like this big thing? Because when you have that as your 1-2 punch, everyone in Hollywood thought you're the next big thing, and unfortunately, it didn't end up happening. But he, like Jeremy Renner in this is phenomenal. I'm the one person on this panel who loves Frozen. I absolutely love it. I really do. So I am going to be voting for Frozen. It doesn't matter because The Town went through. So yeah, move on. All right, we got 4 left, and these are 4 tough ones actually. Me and Earl and the Dying Girl versus Blue Valentine.
A happy corner over here. Okay.
Yeah. This is light, colorful, and let's all be very happy about it.
Here in your rom-coms, Taylor. Here we go.
Yeah. All right. So I'll take this one off. I haven't seen Blue Valentine, but I did recently watch Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, like for this bracket specifically. And I feel a little personally attacked because I'm not going to spoil anything, but the movie lies to you for about 3/4 of it. And then it is like, oh, I've been lying to you. And then, but you're fine. Don't get emotional about it because it's fine. And then you're not fine by the end. I think this is a really charming, really emotional, really fun. Like, I know fun is a weird way to probably frame it, but I think it is. I think it's a really sweet movie that I wouldn't even like classify as a rom-com just because there's not really romance in it. I think it's a nice like friendship film, which you don't really get. I feel like a lot of these kind of turn into rom-coms. I think not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but I think when there is kind of that element of, you know, one of the two main characters ends up being sick or getting sick or having some kind of like tragedy happen, and it is put into a love story, and I don't really feel like we get to see it as like a friendship story very often, which I really appreciate about this movie a lot, especially with like the ages of the characters. These really young teenagers who are, you know, getting ready to go into adulthood, trying to apply to colleges, and then this is kind of just thrust upon them, and they become these unlikely friends. And like I said, I just find that really sweet. I think the two leads are great in it. I think Olivia Cooke and Thomas Mann have really great chemistry. I think they were really well cast in this movie. And I think that it kind of gets to have the ending that I think it deserves to have. I don't know if a lot of films like this would kind of go through with it in that way, especially, like I said, when it lies to you for most of the movie about where it's going. So I really enjoyed this movie a lot more than I was expecting to. I didn't really know what to expect going into it, but I just think it's really, really well done. And I think it does a lot of things that kind of subvert what you would expect from this kind of movie.
Do you remember last week how we had the matchup Hate You Give versus Black Klansman and Marisol? But again, yeah, your argument was Black Klansman was the adult version, and then Hate You Give was the like young adult kids version of the same sort of thing. This is kind of the same, but I think Mia and the Dying Girl does it better. And I really resonate with this movie. I connect with it a lot, and I really love Mia and Earl and the Dying Girl. So I'm voting for Mia and Earl and the Dying Girl. Mara,
may I please go last?
Sure. Adam, I know you watched. I saw that you watched Blue Valentine this week.
Yeah, I did. But I saw Mia and Earl and Dying Girl a few years ago. Caught up with it and really enjoyed it. Agree with what everyone's been saying. Love that it's a film nerd movie. You get a lot of great references in this, not least of all the Herzog stuff is my favorite. Really enjoy that. Like the fact that they're literally watching the documentary Burden of Dreams makes me so happy. But yeah, I think so many movies in the 2010s, especially films that get labeled as young adult movies, follow a certain formula. And I think the fact that this film is about friendship more than anything else is what I think sets it apart. And I like that, you know, he's called out in a lot of ways situationally for trying to basically self-actualize a lot through this experience and use it to his benefit. But also, you know, the journey's self-evident by the end. You know, we know he's grown in a lot of ways. But Olivia Cooke's character is not one note, and neither is Earl. And there's just a lot of funny moments in this, emotionally resonant moments. And with Blue Valentine, what I liked about Blue Valentine is its commitment to bleakness. I think that's important. I think Mia and Earl and the Dying Girl, despite being bittersweet, ended on a very positive note. Whereas I think Blue Valentine leaves you a bit gutted. But also, like, for people who are familiar with the musical, the last 5 years, the movie and the actual musical, this movie, this movie has a very similar setup. You know, you see the beginning and the end of the relationship in nonlinear order. And, you know, the biggest selling point of that is Ryan Gosling's hairline, which is so unfair to his character because, like, that's only like 5 years later, and we know what Ryan Gosling looks like now, and we know how like impenetrable his hairline is. So I'm just like, He's so. I feel for him when he's got the receding hairline in Blue Valentine, because his character at that point is so like desperate, and it really all like works for me. Michelle Williams is terrific in it. The actress who plays their daughter is great. I love all the music in it. I love the way it's filmed. And I really like movies like this and Before Midnight that examine the warts of a relationship and confront it. And it's by a narrow margin, but I am going to vote for Blue Valentine.
Marisol.
Yeah, fascinating matchup. Like you're saying, you mentioned Before Midnight. Yeah, to have this decade where we had, like, again, like all these, like, the ugly side of a marriage, like when a relationship crumbles kind of movies. Before Midnight, Blue Valentine, Marriage Story. Like, to have all these movies come out. And it's saying something that of all those three movies I mentioned, Blue Valentine is the bleakest motherfucker of the bunch. Damn. Like this, there's like no hope in this movie. But watch it and see what happens. But yeah, and that's what makes it painfully real, because we just don't see this story enough. And there's so many, you know, what do they say? Like half of today's kids, like even grown up, are products of divorce, like of families that the parents that don't stay together, they don't make it. And Blue Valentine is about all the painful ways in which the parents try to stay together, and a family tries to keep love going even though it's faded. And there's so much essential truth in that. There's so much uncomfortable stuff to watch, and when you can make a movie with as charismatic and darling performers as Gosling and Williams, like, you can't look away from something like this. Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl, I did catch up with this week. After the hearts of like film nerds, like this just speaks the language. Just reminds me of like Be Kind, Rewind. It reminded me a lot of that, and which is about these like two little best friends who just love just like making their own versions of like classic movies, and they just film them on their little like Super 8 cameras or whatever, and it's just adorable. And I love how it takes what we talked about, the YA formula of like the sick kids, the Fault of Our Stars YA trope that was so popular in the 2010s, but does have its own spin on it, and is like the bleakest and the most stark, and just dealing with death and the irony and finding the sense of humor in these life or death situations. I think there's so many star-making performances in it, from Olivia Cooke to RJ Cyler, the guy who plays Earl, steals the show in a lot of ways in the movie. I eat up all the movie references in it. I love John Bernthal as like the like tatted out, like pot smoking history teacher in it. It's just like I love all the aspects of it and the creative flourishes and the way that it's filmed. Like I just feel like Michelle Gondry energy when I watch Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. I feel like it's having fun with the film. Two wildly different movies, both bleak, but one definitely more optimistic. This is really, really tight, but I am going to go with Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl, because I felt a big, my heart was fuller at the end of that movie. And I will say this also, I love that the protagonist, I love that this is one of the few young adult movies that I've seen that talks about like, what if your protagonist is dealing with just like depression? Like, what if they're self-sabotaging their own life? And there's a lot of times where people are like, well, the main character's an asshole. This movie confronts like, yes, the main character is bringing a lot of this on himself, and everybody is confronting them about that in the movie. And they are sabotaging their own academic career, their own relationships. And there are a lot of people who do that. And the movie doesn't let him off the hook. And I think that's very adult and beyond the age group that this movie was shooting for. I think it's mature beyond its years. So I'm going to vote for Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl.
Mara.
So I'm glad I don't have to break a tie. This was part of why I wanted to go last. I have not seen either of these movies in their entirety. Sadly, I could not complete both of them. I watched best of scenes for both on YouTube. So I did not want to be a deciding vote for either one. So my homework will be to completely watch Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, just to be a person that completed it just for my own edification. So yeah, I don't need to vote. Vote doesn't matter.
All right. Next up, Tron Legacy versus Creed. Oh wow. Okay, these reactions. All righty. Taylor, I'm going to start with you.
Oh, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. So I watched Tron Legacy for the first time for this bracket.
About 2 weeks ago.
About 2 weeks ago. And yeah. I get what the movie was going for. I really think the aesthetic of it is very cool. I think visually what it's achieving, like with the colors and the kind of futuristic, like I think the aesthetic mostly works, and I think it's intriguing the world that is set up. And I think that having Jeff Bridges in the movie slays. Awesome to have him playing like basically the same character, two different versions of the same character. I think that's awesome. I think it's a bit of a crime, the kind of effects that they used to achieve that a little bit. So I don't love that. I don't think that aged well even back when it came out, let alone right now. But I do think that it's fun. Like I like the premise of it. I think it has elements where like it kind of works, but it doesn't really fully get there. So it's like it's fine. It's one of those movies like, okay, it's fine. Creed, I love. I think it's such a well-made movie. I think the cast is fantastic. I think it's such a cool breath of fresh air to bring to a property that's so beloved, like so iconic and so beloved, because messing with that kind of thing is so dangerous. It's like highly not recommended to do that most of the time because you're worse off for it usually. As someone who doesn't really have a connection to the Rocky movies, I think I've seen I don't know. I've seen maybe something. I don't know. Which like I grew up in a house where people watched Rocky and I was like, no, thanks. But anyway, so it's my own fault, but whatever. That being said, Creed had me being like, okay, maybe there's something, maybe I gotta, maybe there's, all right. Okay, I see you.
The Philly girl on here is like death staring you
I don't
right
care.
now.
I am not. No. I am politely listening.
Let me just put it out there for you. If there's someone that's gonna get me to watch a boxing movie, it's not gonna be Rocky himself. Okay, it's gonna be Michael B. Jordan, where I get to see all of that going on. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say about that. I will watch the Rocky movies. I promise I'll get there. Like, it's just not my list of need to watch is so comically large at this point that I don't want to think about it or I'll cry, basically. But all that to say, I don't like where all of that just went. So Creed.
Marisol. I mean, do you even need to pick me? Come on. Yo, Philly, where we at? Look, this is look. This is so Creed, and I like Tron Legacy. But we're gonna talk about. I hope we all vote. I hope we vote for Creed. Look, no pressure. I hope we all vote for Creed so we can keep talking about Creed later. Tron Legacy, fucking awesome visuals, unmatched visuals still to this day. Man, that is so sleek. The blackness of everything with like the neon blue and the oranges. The look of Tron Legacy is so fucking sexy. It blows my mind. The soundtrack, all-timer, Daft Punk. I listen to that soundtrack to this day, front to back. I love the score for Tron Legacy. Daft Punk went up and beyond on that score. It's pretty flat everywhere else. It's beautiful to look at. Kind of a yawn and problematic with its like hypersexed little like child mind Olivia Wilde fembot little look. There's some more problems when you dig into Tron Legacy. It don't matter. This is just Creed. Let's talk about Creed some more. Let's talk about Creed in the next round, please.
Adam.
What cracked me up when Tron Legacy came out was like I remember thinking at the time, and I still feel this way. No disrespect to Tron, no disrespect, but like this is like a sequel that was just like, it's not that there was an audience for it for sure, but you go back and watch the original Tron, and it is so like downbeat by comparison. It's a very stoic movie, honestly. And Tron Legacy, I think, tries to recapture that mood, even though it increases the sense of scale. Yeah, the soundtrack, the score is fantastic. I don't really I get the criticisms of CGI Jeff Bridges, but it works for me since it's a video game, movie. I don't really care about him looking a little goofy. But the movie is just it is a little dull, despite how good it looks. And now Jared Leto is doing it again, right?
We don't speak of that one at the moment.
Yeah. I know that doesn't factor it. We're not allowed to. Yeah. But Creed, fantastic film, top to bottom. Taylor, you're in for a treat. You could watch them out of order. I'm sure there's some like arbitrary nerd order in which to watch these now that you could probably look up. But I say this all the time. We wouldn't have Creed without Rocky Balboa. So just everyone should remember that. Like, the Creed movies exist because Rocky Balboa laid the foundation of what he was up to, after he retired and all that. He has the restaurant, Adrian passed away, all that stuff. So, yeah, I vote for Creed as well.
Mara?
I'm actually very surprised that there's so much Tron Legacy love here, because almost every time I've talked about this movie with people, they're like, I really, really like it. Michael Sheen, just want to make sure I throw that one out there. I love a little buried creeper weirdo Michael Sheen character in every movie. He should be all the time, always. But Creed, man, one thing that no one's brought up yet, just specifically though, is the Stallone performance in that movie. I just love how much of a different direction they take him. Sure, he was sad in Rocky Balboa, and he was a little sad for a hot minute in Rocky 4. But he really had to actually act, and it was just such a delight to see, because he had to transition into a different type of role in those movies for the very first time, because he was not in the ring anymore. He was a mentor. So I just felt what a great acceptance for him to finally take. Also, if people haven't seen the Rocky 4 Stallone cut, see it. It is so tight. It was legit. I got to see it in the theater. It was an experience. It was so cool. Rocky 4 is already cool, but it makes way more sense. It's way better. It's really great. I really wish they would put it out on physical media, because I would buy it, hands down. Please, cat, don't step on the computer. But yeah, I mean, Creed is one of those movies though where it was. I have one of two reactions anytime there's a legacy sequel of any kind. I'm I just don't need this. And then the follow-up is either, holy shit, I can't believe they actually did this and I love it and it's so well earned, or I aggressively vomit in my own mouth and then force myself to swallow it again. And this really knocked it out of the park. And I've enjoyed the follow-up films as well. So I'm happy to see Creed move on to the next round.
All right. With that, Creed does move on in a 5-0 sweep. All right. Next up, we have second final one of the night. First Man versus Roma. 2018 debate. I'm going to kick this one off. There's a real chance this is my favorite Chazelle movie. There's a on the right day, I love this movie. I think Gosling is criminally underrated in this movie. I think he gives one of the best performances of his career because it's all behind his eyes. It's a very subdued performance. It's very quiet, very subtle, very you can feel the pain he has through the entire film. I absolutely love Gosling in this. I know Claire Foy got all the coverage and no one really talked about this movie after it didn't perform well at the box office, but I really love this movie a lot, and I think it's a very different take on space travel and on the biopic. I think the way that it constructs a man going through grief and a man going through and processing his grief in a time when men weren't able to process, like were discouraged from processing grief, set to a backdrop of the greatest mission mankind has ever made, is a fascinating choice. And I just think that the way this movie is shot and made is phenomenal. Roma is an extremely good movie. I think it is incredibly well made and a real testament to Cuarón's directing, but I just don't connect with it the same way I do with First Man. So I'm voting First Man. Tell.
All right, I guess we're gonna get all the First Man love out first, and then we can kind of go from there. So Damien Chazelle is my favorite director currently. Might be my favorite director, just period, personally. First Man is so different from everything that we've gotten from him, and it's so understated. Like you were saying, the performance from Ryan Gosling is so just, it's all behind the eyes. It's all something that he just, I don't think people talk about it enough. I think, like you said, he gets overlooked because he doesn't have the big, showy, outwardly emotional performance, but just the grief and the devastation that this character goes through is really great to watch. It's really mesmerizing. The sound design and the score in this movie takes me out every single time. The score, I think, might actually, like, Gosling being overlooked upsets me, but the score being overlooked for this movie is criminal. Like, it's so immersive, and the sound design plays such a huge part in why this movie is so visceral, especially when it comes to the space travel like moments that you get. The way that it's filmed visually of the space moments really took my breath away, to be honest. It kind of ruined like most like space movies for me, just because I'm like, well, nothing's shot like that, and none of the sound design is like that, and well, what am I supposed to do now? Like, I guess I'm just gonna rewatch First Man over and over again instead of watching other space travel movies, because what's the point? I love this movie so dearly, and I feel like I kind of watch it and then hear other people talk about it, and I'm like, did we watch the same movie? I think maybe we didn't. I don't think that's what happened there. Yeah, this movie is like, I have so much love for it, and I never am able to be like, oh, that's my favorite Damien Chazelle movie, because I'm like, but La La Land, but then I'm like, but First Man, but I don't know. But this movie, God, I just love it so much. Like, there's not, to be fair to Roma, there's very little you could put up against First Man where I would be like thinking about it even. Roma is gorgeous. It's beautifully shot. The cinematography is wonderful. I think the directing is the strength of the movie. The performances are phenomenal, but I think the directing and the lighting and just the visuals, I think it's so stunning in Roma. And I'm really glad that we're talking about it. But for me, it's like, you'd really have to put something crazy up against First Man for me to think about voting for something else.
Mara?
So I have very, 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 very similar thoughts to the two of you. I am one of those people where I just did not connect to Roma whatsoever. It is a gorgeous movie. Anybody that says that movie isn't beautiful is objectively wrong. I do think it's also well directed, but I just don't see me ever revisiting it again. Like, I just don't see a reason to. I really, really love First Man for all the same reasons that Taylor said. I'm not going to belabor the point. Sad but true. It's got to be First Man for me, hands down.
Marisol? I'm gonna let you. Sorry, I'm gonna give you the runway to just talk about how much you love Roma. I wasn't expecting that. I actually really wasn't. So Marisol, I'm gonna let you have the stage to talk about this movie.
Hey, it's the bracket show. It's my first look. What are we at? 2 hours and 34 minutes. My first fuck you, Jacob of the night.
That has to be a record.
Man, I didn't think this was a movie that was gonna take out Roma. I thought Roma was gonna go through a couple rounds. Oof. Yeah, man. Well, this hurts, but yeah, no, First Man, I think is really special because of its focus on isolation. I love that theme of isolation throughout the whole movie. I really, really do. And it's so fascinating putting these two up against each other because of how exemplary the technical aspects are in both of these films for different reasons. And just, I've never seen space. Space is always in movies, especially since 2001: A Space Odyssey, has always been something that's so quiet. And I love how fucking loud and unnerving and upsetting space is in First Man. I really do. And I totally agree with what you guys are saying about how, like, because Neil Armstrong was such a more like elusive and complicated like figure, it's easy to say like underestimate Ryan Gosling's performance and because it's so unshowy. And I do think it is great. Somebody need to hire a dialect coach for Claire Foy because I don't know what was going on though. I've gotta be really honest. I don't know what was going on there. I was like, I have no idea what's happening. But great actress, okay, like great performance. Yeah. And the score, fantastic in First Man. I guess it's gotta be a memoriam for Roma. Yeah. Shit. Roma, this is some of the most gorgeous black and white photography of the entire decade. The way that light bleeds through at the same time creating these stark contrasts is just from the opening scene of Roma. And I love almost kind of similarly, maybe the opposite of First Man, where it's about the intimacy of what's going on in somebody's life in the backdrop of this larger than life, internationally bigger than life event in history of landing on the moon. Roma is the opposite. It's like about the backdrop of when there's all this stuff going on in Mexico in like the 1970s, and there's this civil unrest and everything. How it just hones in on like the normalcy of this nanny at this home, and talking about history from a perspective of somebody who is unsung. We all know about Neil Armstrong. We could talk about him to the end of time. We know about his story. And Roma is about somebody whose story we never see. And it's a gorgeous movie about somebody we never see. And just performance is so heartbreaking and so real and devastating. I keep thinking about her losing her child, and there's so much truth in observing life just as it is in Roma. And you combine its pace, its melody, its beauty, its simplicity, its quiet. I think it's a really unmatched film that is just doesn't come around a lot. I also think that First Man is special, but I think that Roma is more special. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Because it's gone.
What'd you vote for? Yeah, really. Hey, how you doing?
No, yeah, no. Please proceed.
these are both really strong movies for different reasons, as we've specified. I think between all of you, you've laid out my feelings about these movies pretty well. What I will say about Roma, though, is that is a movie. Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to say this about both of these movies. I think what's unique about them is I think both of them are going to easily outlast the decade where they're from. I think they, not just because they're period pieces, but because they're period pieces that feel fully immersed in the eras that they're exploring. They feel very personal. And in the case of Roma, I love how intimate it is, but the sense of scale is crazy. The depth of field is so rich and detailed. And then in First Man, you have the largest scale story you can imagine, but it's often very claustrophobic, and as space travel is. And so it is tough to see either of these go, but I will give Roma my vote as well, just for posterity. But these are both really strong movies.
All right. And with that, First Man does move on.
I'm not going to lie. I was ready. I was literally holding, I was like, all right, Jacob and I will love First Man, and then we'll cry that it's getting, and then it'll be fun.
Yeah. Mara, you broke some hearts. You happy here?
Yes.
Well, don't worry, everyone. Mara's about to give me her first fuck you for the night. So, 1917 versus Sing Street. Mara,
I'm displeased, but it's an easy choice.
Fair.
Would you like me to begin?
Yes, I'll go with you.
I will sing the merits of Sing Street first, but I'm going to vote for 1917. It was my favorite movie of that year, followed in a very, 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 very close second by Parasite. But Sing Street, if people in the audience haven't seen it, please go watch it. It is, number one, it has great music. The music slaps. The performances are so wonderful. It's really well cast. It's just such a pure coming of age story. The romance in it is a little weird, but very cute. I don't know. It's one of those feel good movies that it makes you feel good, and it's well made and well written and well structured, well filmed. Like, it doesn't just make you feel good because it's like stuffed full of things that are saccharine. It's like, it feels good and it has fiber in it. So you're like, ooh, healthy too. Like, it's an all around really, really good movie, and not a lot of people saw it. But 1917, my God. What a work of absolute art. What a beauty to behold visually. The editing in the movie is just top notch, absolutely top notch. And it's almost like they rewarded it. The score in the film is fantastic. It's there when it needs to be. It's not when it doesn't. I absolutely love, I had no idea that George McKay was going to be our protagonist. I was truly taken aback. I was like, oh, it's going to be Game of Thrones kid. Like, absolutely. Tommen all the way. Yes, we're going.
Tommen.
I was so surprised. Yeah, I don't know. I absolutely, I mean, war movies I'm already a sucker for, but it was such a small human story inside of a war, yet the stakes of it truly affected an entire platoon full of people. So it was big, but told in a very small way. I could go on and on about 1917. I think I'll get to talk about it more, but we've been here for a little while and I have to pee. So I'm going to yield the rest of my time.
Adam.
I think the reason I found Warhorse so goofy is because I was thinking about the recent adaptation of All Quiet on the Western Front in 1917, two very serious takes on the war that just are very, very intimate. And it threw me even more when goddamn Cumberbatch shows up in Warhorse. I was like, okay. I'm like, if it's a shared universe, because I don't know, like you can't have two Cumberbatch World War I movies in the same decade. And I know, thank God Imitation Game was World War II, but you know, like I'm just saying. I love all the well-placed A-list appearances though in 1917. You have your thread with, as we call him, Tommen and George McKay. And for the longest time, until I could finally remember his name, I kept calling Harris Dickinson George McKay too.
Triangle of Sadness.
They need to be brothers. They got to play brothers. Oh, and then Harris Dickinson in The King's Man. He's in the trenches in World War I, which really fucked with me. So I can't keep it straight with these actors, or barely I can. So 1917, an incredible exercise in terms of the one shot thing. I know I come up with excuses to talk about Scott Adkins, but he has 2 one-shot movies that literally have that title, One Shot and One More Shot. But those are like the better version of the Extraction movies, and I like the Extraction movies. And I bring this all up because I love the one take conceit. I think it's really fun. I think 1917 is not fun. It's more serious, obviously, but and the way that it follows video game logic. And you have these things that they acquire as they go throughout. It felt very familiar. Video game storytelling is relevant storytelling, and I think you're seeing more and more video game stuff show up in movie and television storytelling. That's really fun. And then Sing Street, as I alluded to earlier, really swept me off my feet because I saw that the same night I saw What We Do in the Shadows, and I didn't seek it out because I kind of wrote it off because I thought it would just be too schmaltzy. And I love all the music from it. I love the characters. I love the family. And yeah, it's interesting because I'm impressed with 1917 as a production, but I connect with Sing Street a little bit more personally. Sing Street.
Marisol.
Interesting matchup. Sing Street is infectious. I mean, it's got the music, it's got the relentless, almost annoyingly feel-good energy and incessant like enthusiasm that you're like, you want to be like, why are you so happy? But then you're like, well, then it wears down even the toughest cynics. The music is freaking catchy. And the underdog story is really kind of hard to overlook, and it still has kind of like punkish edges to the whole thing. It does remind me a lot of Fighting with My Family. I feel those two are one and the same, not just because they're like UK movies. But 1917 just is this big technical achievement. It really, really is. Not completely one shot. I would get frustrated when people would talk about like, wow, it's a one shot movie. It's not. We know it's not. You could see the points where they digitally stitch scenes together. You want to see a one shot movie, watch Victoria, which is an actual one shot movie, which is a good movie, but that's a 2 hour and 20-minute movie that is literally one shot. That's a really cool movie to watch. That's a heist movie that takes place in like Germany. Takes place over like 2 hours in Germany. It's a cool movie. My point is 1917 is a really big undertaking. It's so impressive. They plucked all these Game of Thrones actors. Richard Madden shows up in the end of 1917. That's pretty dope. I feel the weight of the filmmaking kind of distracting me from the storytelling in 1917. I'm so aware of the way the movie's being made the whole time I'm watching it. That's the one thing that always kind of holds me back with it, that I feel like you said, I won't go as far as to say video game, but you feel that kind of exercise throughout the whole movie, which makes something like All Quiet on the Western Front hit me a lot more because I feel the human connection much more with that movie. And I don't feel a human connection, even though I think it's a technical marvel in 1917. I don't feel a human connection when I watch it as much, though I think it's a really impressive movie. So I'm gonna go with Sing Street. Because just talking about it, I really want to rewatch that movie right now. And I would watch 1917, but I want to see Sing Street first.
Taylor,
Why?
where are you landing?
Why do I have to do this? Yeah, this one sucks also. So thanks so much for that matchup. I love Sing Street. Sing Street is one of those movies where the year it came out, I was so mad that it kept getting overlooked in like the big kind of award conference. Like Drive It Like You Stole It not having an Academy Award nomination is garbage. Like just straight garbage. I listen to that song all the time. It's so fun. It fits the vibe of the movie so well. It's just a well-written song just on its own merit. And it was always super annoying to me that somehow that they believed there were enough better songs in that year to leave it out, which anyway, that's a whole other rant. But I think Sing Street is so charming. And I'm so happy that we have it. Like I remember watching it and being so taken by it. 1917 is a whole other thing. Like it's such a contrast. Like these are just so different. Like these movies are so different. 1917 we got to see super early. We saw 1917 like a month and a half early or something like that. And I remember walking out of it and being like, we can't talk about this for a month and a half. What the hell am I supposed to do with like what? Why? Let me promote your movie for a month and a half by talking about how awesome it is.
I'm pissed I couldn't say it again.
Yeah, I know, and we couldn't go see it again either. 1917 is such an accomplishment. I think like war movies can be pretty hit or miss for me. I'm not huge into the war movie genre. But this movie, I think, hinges very much on the brilliant performances of the actors and actresses involved. I think that George McKay is incredible. I think he really does so much to really carry this movie. I think that all of the kind of cameos, I guess, if you want to call them, like everyone involved in the movie shows up and does their job. And shout out to probably my favorite cameo and Andrew Scott. I think he's great in the film. It's just such a tense movie. It's another one of those movies where I was just tense the entire time and never felt like I could take a deep breath. Like I never felt like there was any guarantee that any of the characters we had met were going to make it out of it. Like there's just you just never feel a sense of security from the film about where this is headed. I think it's a gorgeous film, for sure. I think that like Roger Deakins is obviously incredible just across the board, but this movie was so gorgeous, so breathtaking. And it really took me by surprise because, like I said, war movies, like there's not really a guarantee that I'm gonna like them very much. And this one just kind of blew me away when we saw it, and I was really excited to see it again. So for me, I'm gonna have to go with 1917.
Yeah, and like I echo the sentiments. I really like Sing Street. I really do. But it's not 1917. Like 1917 is just such a strong, visceral film for me, and just incredible filmmaking. And I love every single minute of it. So, and we'll get to talk about that when we do round 2, and that one's going to be rough.
I don't want
to. Guys, thank you so much. I'm going to...
What do you mean when you say that one will be rough?
Oh, because that matchup's going to be fun.
What do you mean, Jacob?
So I'm going to say goodbye, and then we'll do some previews for next week. So
can I just tell Taylor, can I mention to Taylor which songs, can we go over which songs real quick beat Drive Like You Stole It?
Yeah,
nominations.
I know. So, I know this list, and it's painful.
I mean, there's a bunch of La La Land
there
on here, though. No, I mean, this is the year of La La Land, so you can't be too mad. This is the year of La La Land. City Stars won. Audition from La La Land was also nominated. How Far I'll Go, Moana, represent. Okay, respect the Moana here.
That's a great song.
Can't Stop the Feeling from Trolls. Okay,
No,
That's the
absolutely
one.
not.
That's the one.
Absolutely not.
Okay. And has anybody actually heard The Empty Chair from Jim, the James Foley story? Has anybody heard that song?
No.
I
No.
remember that
No.
documentary.
Do you remember the song though?
No, but that's a very serious.
Do you remember the song though?
I just wouldn't be dismissive of.
Do you remember the song though?
Who wrote it?
I mean, it's really fun. I'm trying to make.
Who wrote it?
Just confirming your point.
Who wrote it?
Who wrote it? Probably Diane Warren.
That's what I.
Like,
I'm serious.
It probably is the Diane Warren song, actually.
No, there wasn't a Diane Warren story this year. She took a break. She was over it. Jay Ralph and Sting. Show some respect to Sting. You still got it.
All right, Mara, where can people find you online?
I'm making episodes of The Basement, and I'm gonna keep trying weird food and drink. This past week, I had to watch 2 Lego Star Wars short movies, and I made Trevor watch Psycho. So that was a fun episode. This coming week, he has to watch When Harry Met Sally, and I'm watching the YA movie The Fifth Wave.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm very sorry.
You know what? Maybe next week I'll let the bracket show pick what I assign Trevor to watch for the following show. We can make it a 2010s movie. That's on the list if he hasn't seen it. So
All right.
People can find me there though. I'm not lurking many places right now. I'm busy.
Adam, Marisol, where can they find you guys online?
Well, right now you can find me online lamenting the loss of Roma. I almost made it out of this week unscathed. I was like, okay, all right, we're doing good, okay. And then Jacob was like, gotcha, bitch. And right at the end there. That was cool. That was fun. We're floating around online. Champs on Film, we haven't put up anything since our Oscar videos, but you can always just catch up on our Oscar retrospectives and previews and stuff, and some more reviews. We'll have more stuff on Champs on Film before long. In the meantime, you can find me on Twitter, Marisol_Mariah, and you.
I'm at Eisenthor. Last I checked, but yeah, Champs on Film. We're taking a bit of a powder right now, but yeah, there's plenty of videos to watch, so go watch them.
Taylor?
You can find me right here on the Finally Tailored channel. You can find me on Letterboxd. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me pretty much anywhere at Finally Tailored. I'm not up to too much at the moment, really just doing the bracket. So
you guys can find me pretty much everywhere at Jacob London. There is a list on my Letterboxd, which is a list of every single film that has been eliminated so far. So you can keep track of the films that have been eliminated, just to make life a little bit easier, and what films they lost to. So that is on my Letterboxd under my lists. All right, let's do some previews for next week.
all right.
12 Years a Slave. Did I do that one? Yeah, I did. Oh, I still have that up. My bad. Oops. Haha. Okay. 12 Years a Slave, Ad Astra, Booksmart, Boyhood, Brooklyn, Cloud Atlas, Dear White People, Ex Machina, Interstellar, Ingrid Goes West, Inherent Vice, Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, Klaus, The Lighthouse, Mad Max Fury Road, The Master, Midsummer, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, Molly's Game, Pacific Rim, You Were Never Really Here, Safety Not Guaranteed, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Our Separation, Seven Psychopaths, Snowpiercer, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, Prisoners, The Tree of Life, Warm Bodies, We Need to Talk About Kevin, and Wreck-It Ralph.
Don't you Midsommar Lighthouse me. Don't you dare do that shit.
It's not that. It is not that.
Okay.
I don't like the way he said that. He's like, it's not that.
Sure.
That's funny.
All right, we'll have a discussion.
That's funny. Well, that's
what? Okay.
So yeah, so that's next week. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
God help.